Chris Dashu is live. Okay, there we go.
Is it going?
Are we allowed to curse?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we be?
Because you might want to keep this PG. I don't know.
Funny man.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we will start then, if that's cool.
Yeah. Let's get this nightmare on the road. I'm gonna post on my Facebook as well. And I'm ready.
Oh shit. I have to mute our conversation on YouTube because I was hearing it from 30 seconds ago. All right. So Chris, you actually have the first line of the script.
Yeah, let me get the script open. That's my bad. I don't have
Oh
it.
yeah, I don't have the script open at the moment.
We're really underprepared here.
Do you want me to pull it up or not?
I've got it.
All you have to do is after
ahead.
Chris says this is Chris Dashu, you say this is Josh Hadley. That's pretty much your line.
This
Okay.
is Chris Dashu.
And this is Josh Hadley.
And I am Mike White, and welcome to a special live broadcast of the Projection Booth, 1201 Beyond, and Culture Cast podcasts. It's like 3 for the price of 1. Much like the Justice League, we've joined forces to bring you a discussion of the 2021 do-over mulligan of 2017's Justice League film, which we have to call the Zack Snyder Justice League. So
the Snyder Cut.
The Snyder Cut. Before we jump in, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be spoiling the new cut of Justice League, as well as the other DCEU films, maybe even the Suicide Squad. Second, as this is a live podcast, we'll occasionally be taking questions, reading comments directed at us over in the chat at CultureCast Facebook page, which is facebook.com/CultureCast. That's KULTURECAST. Wow, I can spell third.
Thank you. I feel bad for making you spell it.
It's fine. After this is released to our after this is released to our RSS feeds, it would be really cool if you donated to our shows, be it CultureCast 1201 Beyond or Projection Booth. Consider this like a fundraiser, and we're not going to like bug you every 10 minutes about like fucking tote bags and that kind of stuff. It's just we're live.
You're making that promise. I'm not. I will bother you for tote bags and everything else.
All right, good. All right, let's get off.
Pitch Raycons? Every YouTube out there has Raycons. Are we not going to pitch Raycons to people?
I don't even know what a Raycon is.
It's some sort of wireless headphone or something.
Oh yeah.
Every single YouTube video I've seen in the last 2 weeks is sponsored by fucking Raycon.
AVGN is sponsoring Raycons. If you love headphones, buy Ray J's headphones. Now I know exactly what you're talking about. We're not sponsored by Raycons. We're not sponsored by anything.
No Casper mattresses here, sir.
No, I wish.
So let's talk about the 2017 film before we start to talk about the 2021 film. So let's call this the Whedon cut, maybe the original cut, I guess, but
theatrical
release. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. So, Josh, what was your experience with the DCEU and your impression of the original theatrical cut of Justice League from way back in the before times of 2017?
Well, I saw all of these up to date because my girlfriend loves all the comic book movies and all this. I've hated every single one of them. Batman versus Superman was so bad, it was laughable. So I wasn't expecting much with Justice League, and it underseated my expectations. It was really bad. And in a weird way, and we can come back to this later, there's actually a couple of things I liked better in the 17 version than the 21 version. There's actually a couple of things Whedon improved on. And that says a lot for me because I can't fucking stand Joss Whedon. So I remember probably the funniest part of the 2017 one. My girlfriend loves comic book movies, but she doesn't know comic books. So when Deathstroke came out, at the end, she nudges me in the ribs and goes, "Who dat?" And I had to explain it to her. I thought that was the funniest thing in that whole piece of crap.
I am 100% perplexed. I don't remember seeing Deathstroke before seeing this new version.
He was at the end.
Yeah, he was in the post-credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what the fuck? I even watched... I swear I've... Oh, okay.
You're trust me, I was having similar issues watching the Snyder Cut. I kept asking myself, did I see this in BVS the Ultimate Edition, or the Whedon cut of Justice League? I kept asking myself because some of the things where it's like, where did this come from? Was like, was this the BVS ending scene? Was this a Justice League ending scene? But yeah,
I mean, I saw all of these DCE movies. Sorry, I guess I'm jumping in with my experience. I've seen them all theatrically. For whatever reason, Andrea, who usually loves comic book movies, sci-fi movies, all this kind of stuff, she opted out. She's seen Shazam with me. She's seen Wonder Woman. She's watched Wonder Woman 84 multiple times, and I don't know why. But she would not see Man of Steel. She wouldn't see Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and she wouldn't see the Justice League. She has watched all of them over the last week as I prepared to do a projection booth on Superman. But I just rewatched these, and I thought I watched them all the way through the end credits and did not see this Deathstroke scene at all.
Yeah, he's now. We're allowed to spoil the movie a little bit.
Oh yeah, we're allowed to spoil it completely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're spoiling everything. If you haven't seen the movie, fuck off. Come back after you have.
Because in the theatrical, he was only in the Lex Luthor scene, and he didn't even. It was cut differently because Lex Luthor did not offer him Bruce Wayne. It was just sort of, it was implied Deathstroke broke him out of prison, and then Lex Luthor made something like, maybe we need a league of our own, a legion perhaps, alluding to the Legion of Doom. And Deathstroke was like, I'm on board. And that was it. So the whole apocalypse scene with Deathstroke in this one, where he's with Mara, because of course we need more Amber fucking Heard, but where he's with Mara and them in the post-apocalypse scene, that was new to this. I don't know if that was reshot footage or originally shot and cut, but that Deathstroke was not in the Whedon version, but the Deathstroke on Lex Luthor's yacht was.
Yeah, so the reason for him being on the yacht is different in both versions, but he's still on the yacht either way. It's really weird because, again, like, we heard all of this coming out before this, that it was going to be, nothing that Whedon shot was going to be used in this movie. But they never said, obviously, Whedon never said I didn't use Snyder's stuff, so that's where the weird crossover is. But I do find it funny that we have that same finale scene in both films, but one of them makes sense, at least some sense, and the other one is a complete, throwaway. I mean, they're both technically throwaways, regardless of what Snyder says, I guess, at this point, but...
because when I saw it in the theater, I assumed the way he comes to the yacht and everything, and he's like, nice to see you again, Lex, or something, I don't remember the exact quote, that was him breaking Lex Luthor out of prison. That's what I assumed Deathstroke did, and then we know at that time, the next movie was supposed to be Ben Affleck's Batman, where Deathstroke was going to be the villain. So they were setting up a spinoff for that one.
Wow.
Right.
Huh. I don't know how I missed that. So, Chris, how about you? What's your experience with the DCEU up until before today when we saw this thing?
I mean, I think I can go on record here, and I'm going to name drop our good old friend Matt Campagna. He has come on every time we've had a DC film on the podcast, and we've covered, I think, at this point, the only one we don't have a podcast on are Shazam and Wonder Woman 84. So those are the only two. Well, I have seen them. We just didn't do a podcast on them. I had to watch them to prepare for this. I'm not going to lie. I've been one of those people that has had a bad taste in my mouth left by DC. Mike, we've talked about this before. I'll mention it now. DC had the easier path to make better movies. They owned the three most well-known superheroes in American pop culture, at least before Marvel and Kevin Feige decided to say, let's fucking do something no one else has done, and let's actually make Ant-Man and Iron Man household names. I mean, I know that there are people now that can't fathom Iron Man not being an important part of American pop culture, but 15 years ago, he fucking wasn't. But Batman was and Superman was. They've been pop culture icons for multiple generations. And the saddest thing about this Snyder's involvement with DC is that, unlike Kevin Feige, he doesn't have a vision for the future that involves everyone at DC. It seemed more everyone having to kowtow to his idea of what the movies were going to be. And then because we're all having to play in this man's sandbox as opposed to playing on the playground together, you have movies like this one that tell stories about characters who, when we see them in movies that come canonically right after this one, they are completely different. Aquaman is completely different. I goddamn guarantee you Flash is going to be probably the same, but that's fine. Flash's character in both versions of Justice League is better than most of the things in the movie. But all of these characters, I mean, even Wonder Woman is not the same character that she is in this movie. And it's weird.
I'm gonna argue something with you there on that, though. When I saw Aquaman, it was clear that they added a line in post to make it take place after Justice League,
sure,
the 2017 version, because she mentions you proved your mettle, in the battle with Steppenwolf. But it's also clear that that movie was supposed to come out before Justice League. He doesn't know about Superman and Batman. He's clearly meeting Mara for the first time, right, even though they meet in Justice League. It is clear when you watch Aquaman that was supposed to come out before Justice League, though.
But my point is they have made it now where they've quote unquote, like with the Snyder Cut, they have fixed it so that it does take place after. And frankly, I would go as far as to say it's not even the same character. It's a completely different version of Aquaman. Jason Momoa just happens to be playing him. Just like kind of Wonder Woman is the same thing. I mean, if we had ever gotten that Batman Ben Affleck movie, that Batman may not have been the Batman we get in this movie. I don't know. It seems like when Snyder was making his movies, he was making the characters the way he wanted, and you have Patty Jenkins come in and James Wan come in, and they're giving these characters more to do because they're less a piece of the puzzle like they are in Justice League, and more of their own character to stand on their own two legs, and they have to because they have to lead an entire film. And
I think there's more to it than that, though, because you have the aspect of hindsight.
Oh, sure.
So obviously, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman were these gloomy, dark, Batman can get raped in my movie. Seriously, Zack Snyder said that he wanted the Joker to rape Batman in prison in a future film. So you have those, and then he saw just a massive backlash against that super dark tone. I don't think Wonder Woman or Shazam, or especially Wonder Woman 84, if those had been made before the backlash, those probably would have been those grimdark movies. Sure. I think those were a almost overcorrection of the response Batman versus Superman got.
Oh yeah, so, the original Wonder Woman is just Captain America. It is very much in the vein of that original Captain America movie. It's a period piece. You have a main character out of time. That's kind of one of the big aspects of it, the fish out of waterness of the story. I mean, I know Captain America kind of has that later in the second movie more, but it has that same period piece tone to it, and it becomes a giant CGI mess at the end, kind of like Captain America does, which, again, that's a superhero movie problem, not a DC Marvel problem. But as far as I'm concerned, I would agree with you 100%. It was an overcorrection. But at least in Wonder Woman, we got to see David Thewlis's giant mustache sticking out of that Ares helmet. So, the universe gifted us some positives out of that.
I hated Wonder Woman 84. Well, Wonder Woman. I've hated all of these. But, Mike's known me long enough that it's not a surprise at all. But
I don't think you're part of a group of people that aren't like loud about their feelings. I think it's very like either you like DC or you hate DC, and there doesn't seem to be middle ground anymore. And you can't even like Marvel and DC. You have to like one or the other. It's fucking insanity to me. It makes no sense.
Well, you also have the Snyder cultists, which we can talk about later, with the response, even just within one day, that this movie, this miniseries, this bloated, dying whale that it is, has gotten. You have these Snyder cultists. Oh my God, he's a genius. He keeps being handcuffed by Warner Brothers. Oh my God, if they would just let his vision, it would just decimate Marvel. Oh my God, Snyder, Snyder, Snyder. There are these cultists around him.
Look, before we get into the cult, which is very much responsible for the Snyder Cut, let's talk about the Whedon version, though, a little bit. And let's talk about what we saw in that version, because I just rewatched that one last night. And
did you see it in theaters, Mike?
I saw it theatrically, yes.
Okay, so I did as well. So we all saw it theatrically, at least, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Saw it theatrically. Apparently, though, I didn't stay till the end credits though, to see this.
I don't blame.
It's really bothering you, isn't it?
It is. It is very much bothering me. Even last night, I said to Andrea, I was like, I am going to go downstairs and record some bumpers for a show that I was putting together. I'll be back before the end credits are over. I was back before the end credits were over, and it still wasn't part of the movie I was watching. So I don't know if it was a mid-credit scene that I walked out on or what.
It might have been, because it was a post-credit scene theatrically with the DVD. I don't know where they might have moved it a little bit around. I don't know.
And it was I keep thinking, it was the director's version, but no, I'm thinking of Batman v Superman. But yes, last night I watched the Whedon version, and it's painful. There are a lot of painful things in that movie. The whole lip thing. The lip bothers me so much.
I couldn't get over how much of the lip was. It was so distracting.
Well, and on top of it,
the movie
exactly.
With that. You start the movie with the kids off screen and just staying on Henry Cavill's face that whole time and getting to see that lip front and center and just that dead space. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? It just drove me crazy.
Worse than that, Mike? Vertical video.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
Video.
That's true too.
I was surprised. How much pet peeve that is of mine.
I mean, I think you could go out on a limb.
Like little hearts coming up and stuff to be like, this is showing live on Instagram right now, kind of thing.
I'm pretty sure though, and I think we discussed this before, Mike. It feels like the reason they did it in the Whedon version to open the film was to like hang a lantern on it and just be like, look, we can't do anything about this. So let's just like get it out of the way now. Because if you see it now, once you've seen it a couple more times in the film, it won't be as jarring. Because it looks like there's an app on your phone where you can replace people's mouths on pictures. It looks like that. It looks like a $10 app off of the fucking App Store.
Yeah.
It's not even that. It's that fans would take it and they would redo the FX on their laptop, and it looked better than probably the millions of dollars Warner Brothers spent.
Exactly.
When the fans can clean it up better than you in 2-3 days after the bootlegs come out, you failed.
And it's really sad that there's a lot of stuff with both movies. Normally, when you have a situation like this where a movie gets a secondary release, and this is obviously... Look, friend of the podcast, he was on my last episode, Cullen Gallagher, was talking about how people are claiming this is an unprecedented release. Like, the history behind the Whedon movie is as wild. Go ahead.
Stick to the Whedon for now. Do not go to the Snyder.
No, I wasn't. No. I'm merely talking about with Whedon's version of the movie, how much crazy stuff there is in Whedon's movie alone that we could talk about. We could fill this whole podcast just talking about Whedon's movie, and we have another 4-hour movie to talk about too. It's insane. The mouth thing alone is something, like you said, that thousands of YouTubers have made content about for fucking years now, and that's one aspect of the Whedon movie. Just one aspect of it. Not to mention the tone or the Russian family or all the other crap in the Whedon movie that was taken out in the Snyder Cut, thankfully.
I had no memory of Holt McCallany being in Justice League.
Really?
Absolutely no memory. So this whole like post opening scene with Batman and him on the roof and all this kind of stuff, no memory.
I remembered it because that was the first. That was when the first season of Mindhunter came out. Was around the time Justice League did, and so I was like, "Oh, it's the guy from Mindhunter." That's weird.
I believe it. I believe that it was there, but for whatever reason, when I rewatched it last night, I was just like, "Wow, I don't remember this." So this whole like quippy dialogue that they have back and forth, and then the whole thing about the parademon. And forgive me if I screw up and I call parademons Chitauri. I don't know why. I keep thinking that they're exactly the same creatures as the Chitauri from the Avengers. Oh, I guess maybe because they are. But the whole thing of fear attracts them, and I guess the planet is afraid because Superman's gone. So this whole thing of I'm going to hang Holt McCallany over the edge, and it's going to attract a parademon. I'm going to lock it in a net, and then it's going to self-destruct for whatever reason, and it's going to leave an impression of the 3 boxes in its goo on the wall. That whoever greenlit that idea is some of the worst stuff that I've ever encountered. I'm just like, what? Why would they leave 3 boxes in the impression? Why did it self-destruct? It just, none of that made sense to me at all. And that was one of the things where I'm just like, wow, I just don't remember this scene, but okay, I guess I'll go with it. And man, is it bad.
Mike, have you ever considered when you watched Justice League theatrically, you were in an alternate dimension where you saw a version we never did? Because I love how like you're being taken aback by things from the original theatrical cut. It was that milquetoast and boring that I forgot most of it as well. And when I rewatched it, I was like, man, I just like some of this stuff I don't remember at all.
So many just weird little things, like in the opening credits where it's got the Daily Planet and it's got Prince and Bowie and Superman, and it says, did they return to their planet? And I'm just like, really? That was in this movie?
I actually, there is something. No, I don't like the Joss Whedon intro scene, but I like that idea that, you know, because he has some line about it's because he's gone, isn't it? That we've lost hope or something along those lines. I kind of like that idea, which is touched upon in the Snyder version, but not dealt with. I liked that idea that, like, the world was in mourning for Superman. Uh-huh. That was kind of a neat idea that I didn't think was explored properly in the Whedon cut, though. But that, Zack Snyder, I mean, having joy in a movie? No, he had to get rid of all of that.
Well, and let's not kid ourselves, and this is something that we probably should get out of the way here. It still cracks me up that because of how successful Marvel had been in building a universe through 23 films, and this was 2017, so it wasn't 23 at the time, but they had done such a successful job at building a world to set the Avengers film in that they rushed so badly with Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman to have Batman and Superman fight in the second film, in which Batman in this version shows up for the first time. This is Superman's second film, and Superman dies in his second film. And then he gets resurrected in the third film that he's in. That, to me, is just a complete waste of the Superman's arc to begin with. And obviously, Snyder Cut and Whedon Cut have different ways of handling it. But in the Whedon Cut, or just in general, because that is something both films share, Snyder and Whedon, is bringing Superman back. The fact that they got 3 movies in, and that's how they had the Superman resurrection arc was handled between 2 movies, is kind of nuts, given how big of a deal it was when it came out as a comic book.
Well, it was also so compressed time-wise from what Marvel had been doing. They literally emailed the Justice League into Batman versus Superman. They were literally attachments. They were literally emailed into the movie.
Yeah.
Which is the lazy. A friend of mine, Sarah, she's a comic book nerd. She's worked on, like, Snakes on a Plane and stuff like this. She didn't believe me when I told her about the email attachment. She couldn't believe that's how Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash are introduced into this universe.
And that Lex Luthor, I guess, made their logos.
Well, I mean, come on. If you're going to have a superhero, you're going to make a logo for him, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can hear him now, like calling up, the graphic designer on the 23rd floor and just like, hey, I need a logo. It's for a guy that can run really fast. Oh, you know what? I need a guy who can breathe underwater and a guy who we just kind of see in the background. And there's another guy, and there's a square. So I don't even know what this guy's name is, but please make a logo.
He looks kind of like Miles Dyson from Terminator 2.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to hit on some of these things that I just was so amazed at last night. But I will tell you one thing, watching the Whedon cut that made more sense to me was I don't see... they're not robbers. They're terrorists. And the guy even says that
we're going to return humanity to the stuff. Okay, first of all, you're going to take out 4 blocks. That explosion that she throws through the roof, that was not going to take out 4 blocks. That would have been lucky to take out the building.
Right. That, and we're going to take society back to the Stone Age by killing some school kids. I don't understand that either. Like, take society back to the Stone Age by, I don't know, maybe Project Mayhem, like blowing up all of the credit card companies and like electrical grid or those kind of things.
Setting off an EMP to
GoldenEye.
Archangel.
Yeah. Exactly. I found it interesting. There's a line that's in this Whedon cut which makes a little bit more sense because of, they say the sin of the world has brought on these demons. So it's like, or a plague of aliens. So it's like, oh, okay. So either they mean the plague of aliens as in Superman and maybe Wonder Woman is considered an alien, or plague of aliens as in these parademons, which are allegedly like going all around. And I was like, oh, okay, well that kind of actually makes sense. But then the take the world back to the Stone Age doesn't make sense. I'm like, make these guys maybe religious fanatics and making some sort of statement about the parademons or whatever. But yeah, and I agree with you. That little explosion is not going to do anything.
I noticed that in Whedon's version they didn't use bad language either. They were very proper criminals in the Whedon version. They didn't say fuck or shit or anything else. They were so courteous to those children that they were about to murder.
Yeah, well, we had to put this thing very
PG-13.
Yeah. But there's also something else. So, maybe this was playing into a deleted subplot with all of those, Stone Age guys. But you have absolute proof that aliens exist. The Kryptonian spacecraft, all the events of Man of Steel. You know that there was a super technologically advanced planet out there. You are studying the alien spacecraft, and people keep like, well, that's impossible. You can't. Okay, after aliens have landed on Earth and you've examined their technology, that's impossible is not a term anymore, okay?
Yeah.
That you don't get to be surprised anymore. Physics, as you know it, have changed.
People fly through the air. People are flying through the air. Yeah. I mean, there you go. I mean, that's, and like you said, Josh, they're seeing it on TV. It would blow our minds. Our minds would collectively melt.
There is something that goes on in both the Whedon and the Snyder that drives me nuts as far as how much time has passed between this scene and the last scene. And we'll talk about it when we get to the Snyder thing, and I know that for sure this whole thing, that opening scene with Batman that I talked about, had to be just added in because Batman's clean shaven. And the next time we see him, he's got a full beard. And I'm just like, okay, I think you said that you're going to go look for Arthur Curry. How many months has it taken you to look for this guy? Because now you have a full beard.
There's a big, not continuity, but a big time error in the Whedon cut. When Wonder Woman is talking to Bruce at the lake, which is not in the Snyder cut at all, and she's kind of talking a little bit and talks about the Green Lantern and the battle of men and all that, which is all set up differently. he has like one of the guards at the prison where Wally is going to, and then he sets up and calls that guy to set up the guard, and I'm like, wait a minute, these scenes are in the wrong order. Oh man. It was like, wait a minute, you already have to have done this before you could have done this.
The thing that stuck out to me last night when I rewatched the Whedon Justice League was just so many of the Whedonisms. And I think that Barry Allen suffers the most under Whedonisms because there are so many scenes of him just being a total shit, a dork, a doofus.
Brunch? You need to know about Brunch.
The drawing of the glasses and the tattoos on the big guy who's behind him at wherever, DMV or whatever that he's waiting for. I'm just like, okay, that's a Joss Whedon thing. There are just so many things that I'm just like, wow, this is Whedon trying to bring levity to this, and it just does not work.
And I was actually kind of shocked after watching the Snyder Cut. There was a line of dialogue that I was sure was a Whedon insert, and it wasn't. How'd you get the house back? I bought the bank. Okay, but Bruce, that's not how that works. If you buy the bank, she just doesn't. They don't just do what you say. That's not. I was sure that was a Whedonism, but I guess it wasn't.
But then there's so much more after that are Whedonisms. Like,
yes.
Like, you bought the bank? Oh, yeah, it's kind of a habit for me, or whatever he says. Like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And we were talking about this whole thing, too, of time not making sense is like, they talk about, after Superman died, this one, and I hate using this term, mother box, lit up like a Christmas tree. And it's like, okay. And then a few minutes later, cut to Themyscira, and the box, there's a box, one of three mother boxes there. And it's like, any changes today? No, everything's fine. Oh, wait, no, it awoke. And I'm like, well, why did one light up like a Christmas tree after Superman died? And now we're maybe months later, depending on how quickly Bruce Wayne grows a beard, and now finally this one on Themyscira lights up. It's like,
I also like the fact, did you notice that all the Amazons were crowded around, waiting when it woke? Like, okay, I'm going to go to a different movie for a moment, but remember in like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when all of the tribal people start breaking out of the walls, and you kind of ask yourself, so do they just sit there all day? Do they take shifts like the Looney Tunes? Morning Ralph, morning Fred. It's like, wait, is that your job to stand there with your sword like this, right, just in case the mother box wakes up?
Exactly.
I'm like, this is dumb.
I've been a mother box watcher for my entire life, and my mother was a.
Well, it's been a passion of yours. I know that.
Well, and then don't forget, it also turns out your job is completely worthless. You're terrible at it, and it doesn't matter anyways. Congratulations, right. You've wasted your life.
And I love the complaint about Marvel movies, which is the big light from the sky. And how does Steppenwolf get around but a big light from the sky?
The big tube, the light tube in the sky.
Though, the boom tubes are from the comic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're called boom tubes. Yes, the boom tubes have been in the comics since the 60s.
Yep.
So they do get a pass on the boom tubes.
Just like they technically get a pass on the mother box. They didn't come up with the name mother box.
Exactly. The mother boxes are from the Kirby stuff from the 60s as well.
Same with something else we're going to talk about that sounds equally stupid, and I know Josh will get a kick out of this. Granny Goodness. Also another terrible name for a character, but another character that needs to be taken seriously because he shows up in the Snyder Cut.
Doesn't say anything, though.
No, but he's there.
You have to point out who that was because... Yeah.
But, okay, when Darkseid he's got Desaad on one side, and the gray-haired old lady-looking one, that's Granny Goodness.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I will admit I was much more of a Marvel guy growing up. So like DC, I I watched the Superman films. I watched, all four of those. I used to watch,
Super Friends.
well, Batman, I guess. So I knew a little bit about these. I watched the Batman movies, but yeah, I was not a DC reader. So like the whole character of Darkseid, he's very new to me, and Steppenwolf, 100% new. I never knew that the band behind Born to Be Wild was so angry about things.
Well, and the other thing, Mike, that you mentioned is, I think, and like Josh, I wonder if you agree with me, like the Reeves Superman and the Keaton Superman and a lot of everything before now has stayed away from the fourth world stuff, the weird stuff. I mean, even Marvel stayed away from their version of the weird stuff. They're just now getting into the multiverse and the cosmic strange stuff. They're just now getting to it because they know that it's going to be a hurdle for casual viewers to get over. And I mean, again, to your point, Mike, like some of these things are just weirdo things from the comics that make perfect sense in the comics, like boom tubes. But if this is the first time you've ever seen it, because this is the first time it's ever showed up in a movie, you're going to be completely taken aback. And, DC didn't do a very good job of introducing these things to the audience in a way that isn't, and Mike, you'll probably get a chuckle out of this, I compare Snyder's Justice League to David Lynch's Dune. It's as problematic as that movie is with having things go on, that if you have kind of a reference point with the source material, you're like, oh yeah, the all the things in Dune, like the weirding modules, stuff like that. Like that's like the Mother Boxes. It's weird, but like I'm a Dune fan, so I accept it. But like Mother Box, boy, that sounds real dumb, doesn't it? It sounds real dumb and bad.
I mean, Infinity Stone sounds a lot better.
But I also want to say, and I honestly wonder how many people are going to, I don't know what our viewership is right now, will get this joke.
Two people, I think.
Two people, there you go.
9 on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Whew.
Now, he was still alive when they supposedly shot some of this footage. Why did they not get Renee Auberjonois to voice Desaad? He was the voice of Desaad on Super Friends.
You're jumping ahead, Josh.
What's that?
You're jumping ahead. You're talking Snyder Cut again.
But
smack you down, bitch.
To be fair, we did talk about Grady Goodness, who is the other character other than Desaad.
Let's
to go back to Snyder Whedon Cut. There was a moment that Snyder did fix that I laughed out loud in the theater at. They're all off fighting the resurrected Superman in the day for night nonsense in the Whedon Cut, and the Mother Box has landed just on top of that car. And then the boom tube comes down, and they totally forgot about it. And, right in the theater, I turned to my girlfriend and went, yoink! That needed just a yoink sound effect. At least the Snyder Cut fixed that. That wasn't nearly as dumb as it was in the Whedon Cut.
Well, there is a sound effect. Speaking of boom tubes, there's a sound effect that happens after Steppenwolf appears or disappears that is basically like, it's almost like the noise that the Great Gazoo would make in the Flintstones. It was just like this little noise. I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, that was some of the worst sound design that I've heard. But more Whedonisms. We have so much of Martha and Lois together, and this whole weird thing of Martha saying to Lois that Clark said that you were the thirstiest woman he ever knew, and then she changes it to hungriest because she's hungry for stories, using thirst in that way, in a very 2017 way. It took me a minute to even cast my mind back to thirst traps and all those kind of things. I was just so disappointed that joke was even thought of, much less put into a multi-million-dollar film.
I'm sure
Joss Whedon thinks he's funny. And he's not.
I was going to say, Joss Whedon was chortling to himself while writing that down. Just like, how can I make something funny? I'll put thirst in a Justice League movie. That'll make them laugh.
Ugh. Oh, the other thing I forgot was the whole idea too of the parademons not liking sirens, because when I was rewatching that first scene with the parademon and Batman and him are fighting way up above the city and all this stuff, and then just happen to land back on the same roof that they started on, which was amazing. That somewhere in the middle of the fight, this siren starts going off. I'm like looking at my computer, I'm looking at my phone, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Talk about bad sound design. I'm just like, where's this noise coming from?
Well,
And
there's
then
also-
later on, he says to Alfred, like, they really hated this siren noise. You know, we got to use that. I'm like, oh, okay. The siren was coming from the TV. I thought it was from outside.
There's also something about the parademons that I like better in the Whedon cuts, shockingly enough. When they have the flashback to all the armies fighting, well, it's Steppenwolf in the Whedon cut, you actually see how parademons get made. They get like the corrupted fallen. So they don't do that in the Snyder version. That makes them almost more pitiable. These were once your comrades that are now this zombie-like demon. That's actually more horrifying, I think.
Well, they mention it in the Snyder cut. They one line mention it. They just go like they go like, oh,
but they actually show it in the Whedon
cut.
Like,
yeah. But in the Snyder
cut,
cut,
the guys on the ground get stabbed, and then he starts shriveling up and stuff. And I'm like, that was kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, in Snyder, it's like a one-line throwaway. It's like, they raise the world and everybody becomes parademons. It's like, I would rather see that, actually. And like you said, Whedon actually shows it, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, it's that old screenwriting thing, right? You tell it, you don't show it in order to make it better.
Show, don't tell.
No, I was going the opposite way because that's how Snyder works.
Oh, yeah. Well, boy. Yeah.
Well,
oh, God.
To be honest with Joss Whedon, though, he was one of the few guys who could break that rule. And I look at the pilot episode of Firefly. The version that was the original screener version given to critics, the Battle of Serenity was told by the two survivors, and so much emotion in their voice and tone. But in the aired version, they showed the battle. It didn't have nearly the impact of watching these two PTSD characters telling it. Sometimes telling is better than showing. I will admit that. You just have to be really good at the telling.
Josh is right, yeah.
The famous speech from Jaws is all told and not shown. Thank God they didn't cut to, a de-aged Quaid out there floating with Herbie, and Herbie ends up and he doesn't have any legs anymore. Thank God for that.
There's a whole movie of that Nicolas Cage USS Indianapolis. That's a Jaws prequel, right?
Exactly, it is.
But see, here's the funny thing: if you're not Joss Whedon and you're Zack Snyder, you don't choose between show and not tell, or tell and don't show. You could do both.
Yeah.
You can do both. And guess what? It doesn't work.
That battle against Steppenwolf, I had forgotten about the one Green Lantern that showed up. I thought it would have been like the whole Green Lantern Corps that showed up.
You would think that, and especially it wouldn't be the Green Lantern of the Earth sector, because that was almost always a human. Although I think Avian Sewer was the Green Lantern of that sector before he chose Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner and all that. But yeah, you would think the Lanterns, and they were supposed to be in more. I gotta bounce between the two cuts for a moment. Martian Manhunter scenes, when he visits Bruce at the lakeside cabin. In the original script, I don't know if they ever shot this.
They did.
That was Kilowog of the Green Lantern Corps meeting with him, offering their services.
Snyder said recently that they did shoot that scene with the Green Lantern, but Warner Brothers told him, we have our own plans for the Green Lantern characters, which they do, and they're not lying. They have a TV show coming out on HBO Max. But that was their reason. Whatever the fuck, amount of value you put into that statement is fine, but whatever. I mean, it's okay. Just restrict people from using characters because you're going to use them as well.
So they take these 3 mother boxes and they give one to the elves, one to the dwarves, and one to the humans.
Keep away from the
and the fire drakes from the north get nothing.
Yes. Oh, and those damn Rohirrim, they just treat those wild men terribly.
Let's
It's
not kid
really bad.
ourselves. In the Snyder Cut, there should have been a moment where Superman and Batman were talking to each other, and Batman looked at Superman and went, "Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell?"
Well, when the Amazonians shoot the arrow and it lands in that temple and lights up, I'm just like, oh, Gondor calls for aid.
I think Batman should have asked Superman. Now, I don't know if they were just making an implication. So, okay, Lois has, you've accepted, because she's wearing the wedding ring. Do you notice she had a pregnancy test in her drawer with her press pass?
Force majeure, dude. It was force majeure. The lack of subtlety is shocking.
Wham! Right across the face.
Yeah. He is like a wooden mallet to the forehead with subtlety. It just knocks you out.
The music cues in both movies. We'll talk about the Snyder one, but the music cues in the Whedon one were just killing me. The use of the white stripes for Arthur Curry when he's walking and drinking and about to go back in the ocean. I'm just like, wow, what the fuck am I watching? Not as bad as the end credits song of, what is it, Come Together by Aerosmith. I'm just like, why come together? I guess because all of the superheroes are coming together, but why? Why are you using this? So bad. And I had forgotten how they plant that Russian family, that goddamn Russian family, who I guess is living 10 miles away from the old cooling tower of Chernobyl. What are they doing there?
I have no idea. I think we probably want to re-add Josh froze and disappeared on us.
Uh-oh.
I really want to talk about the Russian family because it's the thing that I think the Whedon movie has the funniest leg up on the Snyder Cut for is the Russian family.
I think that they might eventually become stalkers in the zone.
I mean, they mentioned in the Snyder Cut that area is irradiated to hell.
Yeah.
There's a joke about it. About how the guy's going to grow a foot out of his ass or something.
Right. I don't get it. I do not get it at all. I'm trying to add him. We'll see if he comes back. We'll give him a moment. His brain might have exploded from thinking about the Russian family.
My brain exploded having to think about the Russian family. God.
This is a good time to remind folks that this is a little bit of a fundraiser for the Culture Cast 1201 Beyond and the projection booth. So, throw us a couple bucks if you want. We are on Patreon.
$1 is all it takes on my end to get bonus episodes.
Holy shit. That is so cheap.
$1.
For me, it's $10.
But see, I'm going to give a shout out to my Patreon subscribers who are watching us live right now. Big thanks to all of you out there. You know who you are.
Do you know who they are?
I know. Do they know who they are? So what happens if we don't re-add Josh? Do we have to go this alone? As alone as the two of us together is?
He is trying to call us.
Oh.
You can merge calls. Let's see.
Oh, look, there we go.
There we are. Oh, you're on your phone.
Yeah, because I completely lost the internet, so I'm on data right now.
Oh, man.
Wow.
My internet on my phone and my computer just... this place likes to do those brownouts where they just go down for an hour and then everything's fine again.
Right.
I'm more personally a fan of the brown note.
Yes.
So all of a sudden it was I just lost you guys. I lost everything.
But have you lost the will to live because we're about to talk about the Russian family?
Oh, good God, the Russian family. At least they're gone now.
Yeah. Thank goodness for small favors.
What's insane to me is that Whedon felt it necessary to add what could conceivably be called a side plot to the climax of the film. A unnecessary side plot that adds nothing. Zero. It adds so little that by not having it in a different cut of the film, that cut is better. Wildly better. The climax actually somewhat works. without a random Russian family stinking up the joint.
I was actually waiting for them while watching the Snyder Cut.
Me too.
I was like, because I didn't know if those were a Whedon creation or a Snyder creation. So I was happily surprised they didn't show up.
It feels like Whedon wanted to do it for one reason. He's like, wouldn't it be cool if Flash pushed a car?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be. It's not cool at all. It kind of takes Flash out of everything. I mean, Flash really isn't in the climax anyways, which is funny that they actually figured out how to... You know what it is? In the Whedon version, they had to figure out a way to keep Flash out of the climax. And so that's what they did. That's all it is. If you think about it, Flash isn't in the Snyder Cut climax, but he's not in the Whedon Cut climax either, so they had to figure out a way to get him out of it without completely changing the film and having it go closer to, quote, Snyder's vision of the film. So the Russian family is a means to an end, and it is a terrible means to an end. But it keeps Flash far away from the main fight, which is what it had to do.
That they keep cutting back to them, and then there's like the parademons are outside of the house, and they're like, what happens when we run out of food? And I'm like, well, first off, your English is very good, and then that the little girl has bug spray, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is terrible. Why?
Hey, at least Superman didn't pick up a building and move it, because the structural integrity of buildings is do that, don't you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. The one thing, remind me, sorry to jump back like quite a few minutes. Is there a moment after Wonder Woman saves the kids that is there a little girl that says, I want to be like you in the Whedon version?
No.
Okay. All right. I was just
save the kids in the Whedon version the same way. They don't have that whole bank subplotty thing is not as drawn out.
Right, okay.
It's not as funny in the Whedon version. A guy doesn't get pink misted in front of a bunch of children, and the children are just like, okay, can I be like you so that I can just murder people with wanted abandon? That dude got blown up in front of children by another human being, and those people were okay with it.
Because we're in the Zack Snyder verse now, where violence is cool.
Yeah.
It's true.
I was talking about the music cues, and I had forgotten that Elfman came in and did the score for Whedon's Justice League and did all of these little nods, one to himself and then two to John Williams. So like when J.K. Simmons shows up as Commissioner Gordon and then Batman shows up, which I guess that would have... So that's in the Whedon version, that's the second time we see Batman as Batman, but in the Snyder version, and I know I'm jumping ahead, in the Snyder version...
Yeah, you stop talking about the Snyder Cut, pal.
Yeah, but it was interesting that they saved that, until later. Like, we don't see him as Batman. He's mostly Bruce Wayne and throughout the whole beginning of the Snyder version, but he jumps back and forth in the Whedon version.
It's very much a Jaws-esque thing, right? Like, keep him at the back, make Batman being a thing on screen super cool, right?
Right. Yeah, it definitely is. Whereas we'll show Cyborg whenever he shows up and Flash whenever he shows up. And Flash, there's that whole thing where they go and save all the kidnapped scientists, and the whole save one speech is whole cloth Whedon. So I was very surprised to find that was his whole thing of, I mean, really, anytime the Flash, well, let me take that back. I was going to say anytime the Flash is incompetent, it's a Whedon thing. But he does trip over his own feet in both versions, or trip over like a step when he's trying to, I don't know, understand the purpose of him having to super run around the thing and push the sword up to Wonder Woman, because she ends up falling on the ground and then Steppenwolf
because it looks cool.
Falls a few minutes later. Yeah, I guess that's
sword
why.
director That's dramatic.
It's
I
cool,
guess so.
man. It's the cult of cool, dude.
Yes.
Ugh.
You just don't know it, man. You don't get it, man.
You're all about you're not about the sizzle, brother. You're about the steak. Zack Snyder's
Guess
about
so.
the sizzle, man. He's the sizzle man. He's not a steak man. He's about the sizzle. I want the scent of the steak. I don't want to taste it.
I think Whedon's just as guilty as this
Oh,
stuff,
100%. Whedon is all about making characters say funny, cool things that don't make any fucking sense that the character should be saying that shit, period.
Fucking quips.
I have a question to ask you too. Because the credit sequences are different on both of them, do you think now that we know what the differences between the Snyder Cut and the Whedon Cut are, that whole intro sequence where everything's in slow motion and the guy's kicking oranges and all this, and the death of Batman, and the homeless guy where it says "I tried"
Right.
above it, directed by Joss Whedon, do you think that was absolutely intentional?
Yes.
Now that we know that he absolutely meant that for us to pick up on?
Didn't you, Josh, did you not think that before this anyways? I think we all did, right?
I didn't.
Really?
I'm just... Yeah, Josh is blowing my mind right now and making me think, yes, that was a message to us.
I thought that when I saw it the first time, I was like, this can't be unintentional. It has to be intentional.
When I saw it in the theater, the whole "I tried" right underneath the additional scenes by Joss Whedon or whatever it was, I'm like, okay, is that the editor fucking around or is that intentional?
Yeah,
Wow.
I thought it was intentional for sure. And
it's just like 4 years ahead of us.
yeah, and to your point, Josh, like now knowing what we know, that movie is not referenced, especially not that intro scene. I think 100% that's an intent by either Whedon did it himself or he told his editor to do it like this. People will pick up on it. Whoever picks up on it. Can we?
Will pick up on it.
I don't know how much more we want to talk about the Whedon cut, but I do want to ask you guys, looking at the Snyder cut, and we're about to talk about it, or I'm sure we're getting close, talking about the Snyder cut, right? How does the Whedon cut look now, 4 years later, post Snyder cut, versus 4 years ago? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Is it the same?
Is it? So, like I said, I watched it last night. Are you talking about when I watched it last night, or if I think back on it after having watched the Snyder Cut?
Has it changed in between the time you saw it the first time and post Snyder Cut?
Now that I see what Whedon brought to the party, I didn't respect the movie before. It's kind of like, the person you pick up at the club and take home and you're just like, yeah, we're just having sex and I won't respect you in the morning. I didn't respect the Whedon cut in the morning, but I didn't respect it at the time either. So I knew from the beginning I wasn't going to respect that film. And yeah, it's worse now after having seen the Snyder Cut, I think.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, because I think I agree. The Snyder Cut is a better. To me, that's saying, do you want to get shot or do you want to get stabbed?
Boy, only hearing that part of the entire statement made me wonder if I wanted to get either. You were cutting in and out there for a second, Josh. I'm assuming.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming you said, "Go ahead." Probably repeat it so we can actually hear. Well, what we heard was shot or stabbed.
Well, we can do that. Still, asking the difference between do you want to get they're both bad op. Does that make sense?
You're still cutting in and out pretty bad, at
But
least on my end.
But you are on my end too, but I get what you're asking.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that would have fixed it.
As for me, I remember watching Justice League in the theaters when it came out and thinking to myself, if this is the best foot that you can put forward, given everything that you've seen and done in the last 10 years since, Dark Knight came out, because Dark Knight came out in 2008? And Justice League came out in 2017, so 9 years. If this is the logical next step for DC, is to make a Justice League movie, and this is the meeting of three of the greatest superheroes in pop culture history, and this is what you're doing, this is a mess. And having seen the Snyder Cut, it's more of a mess. It's a big mess. It's a worse mess. Like you said, Mike, it's worse. It's way worse. It's so bad that there is no reason to watch the Whedon cut. I would go as far as to say you would never need to watch the Whedon cut unless you're a Whedon apologist, but I guarantee it, you're not that big of a Whedon apologist any more than the biggest Whedon apologist is. The Whedon cut of the movie is terrible with a capital T. The Whedon cut is the worst DC movie of the DCEU. It's the worst, absolute worst.
I don't know if I'll say that.
What's worse than Justice League Whedon cut?
1984, Wonder Woman 84, I think is a bigger disaster.
Yeah, but at least Wonder Woman 84 tells a coherent story. Is it a story that makes very little sense from a morality standpoint? Sure. But at least it doesn't feel like a Frankenstein's monster of a fucking movie, where there's two tones that are like going back and forth, because Whedon tries to say, well, I can't un-Whedon myself, so I'm going to Whedon up the Snyder movie, and he can't do that because Snyder's vision, again, going back to my example earlier, Snyder's vision is so narrow that it is hard for other directors like Joss Whedon, who has his own unique style, to play successfully in that sandbox. He can't do it.
But the thing I'll say between those two is, I liked and say that about Wonder Woman 84. I despised that movie from beginning to end.
That's fair. That's fair. You're not. I don't think that you're in the minority in saying that you didn't like Wonder Woman 84.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people disliked Wonder Woman 84. I think a lot more people disliked Wonder Woman 84 than they thought were going to dislike it. I think a lot of people were expecting they were going to go into it and get a movie that was as good as Wonder Woman was believed to be by a lot of people, and it really under-delivered.
But I'll also say, for the Whedon cut, before we leave that, there's a line of dialogue that works in the Whedon cut that's not in the Snyder cut that I think worked well. When Superman is all crazy and confused, in the Whedon cut, do you bleed?
Yes.
Because that's a direct callback. Sure. And you got to think, that's one of the last things he heard from Batman before he died. That I liked. I got to admit, I liked that line. I was kind of surprised that wasn't in the Snyder cut.
Me too, given that Snyder is the one who introduced it in BVS.
Yeah.
That was his unique vision. His magnum opus. I think his magnum opus is probably this now, not BVS Ultimate Edition. But yeah, it's weird because it's a callback that works way too well to get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a problem in both versions I do want to address, though, because I was hoping the Snyder cut would fix a problem from the Whedon cut. Do secret identities not exist anymore, Mike, Chris? Because, they're sitting there with police officers and soldiers all around calling him Clark.
Right.
Or, Bruce Wayne dressed like a bat. And it's like, do we not? Does no one think it's weird that Clark Kent goes back to work at the Daily Planet at the same time Superman is brought back when they had a funeral for Clark Kent and everything? No one thinks this is weird. Also, Superman is running around looking just like Clark Kent. He's walking around as Clark Kent.
A dude in pants.
Superman.
He's literally wearing Clark Kent's clothing because he's wearing the pants he was buried in as Clark Kent.
Yeah, I like how that explosion knocks his tie, his shirt, his jacket off, but leaves the pants. And
Yes.
Do you think Henry Cavill has like a Brandon Routh problem too? Like a good problem to have? Do you know what I'm talking
about? Yeah, like hung like a horse.
Yes, like hung like a horse.
Yeah, the thing with both the Routh, but especially the Cavill versions, is that Clark Kent is just Superman with glasses. It is not the we were talking about this on the Superman podcast that I did for the projection booth, was how effective Christopher Reeve was when it came to his portrayal of Clark Kent, that he's basically giving a double performance, whereas Cavill, he's just one person the whole time. Like his Bruce Wayne, his Clark Kent is just him with glasses. There's no like stuttering, muttering, unsure of himself, nerdery. There's no personality differences between the two of them. Or maybe if there were, we just don't get enough of it to be able to tell, because
it's not in the hand of someone who knows how to handle the subtlety of an actor playing two characters, and or even writing an actor playing two characters.
Or he doesn't want his characters to appear weak in any way. That's another thing, I think.
Characters aren't cool, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about being cool. I think that's the biggest thing for Snyder is, how do I make this cool and how do I make it cooler? And that's like the only things that he's really super interested in. So when it comes to, humor or those kind of things, I agree the Whedon version, I will never really need to see it again. There are so many bad jokes, so many, like that whole scene of Aquaman talking and then you find out that he's sitting on the lasso. It's like that. Oh God, him talking about how gorgeous Wonder Woman is. I'm just like, oh, this is so not good. Come on.
Very much Joss Whedon projecting. Weird.
Very much. Yeah.
I mean, look, again, like I mentioned early on, like there is so much we could continue to talk about with the Whedon cut, given the Whedon cut would seem to be the downfall of Joss Whedon's entire career. Is his version of Justice League ended up setting off dominoes that had people coming out against him from Justice League, and now from... I'm only mentioning this not because of Justice League, but because of Buffy. Because people on Buffy were saying, look, we knew we couldn't leave Michelle Trachtenberg around this guy alone. That was a mandate on set. Holy shit, guys. Oh. That's awful. That's fucking terrible. None of us in the entertainment industry, because let's not kid ourselves, that's what we do here. None of us should be okay with anyone having to say that, because that's fucking awful. And this guy should apologize. I don't know if that would be enough for a lot of people, but the shit has hit the fan for Joss Whedon, and Justice League seems to have been the catalyst. It's insane.
The thing I really liked was reading about that he was so pissed off about how bad Age of Ultron did that he took that anger into Justice League and was like, listen, motherfuckers, I don't take notes from any of you actors. I didn't take notes from Robert Downey Jr., so why am I going to take notes from you, Ray fucking Fisher? And I'm just like, whoa, okay. And because, I mean, Age of Ultron, I'm sorry, it's one of the worst of the Marvel movies. And no matter how many times WandaVision tried to convince me to go back and rewatch it and maybe try to reevaluate it, I ain't going back. There's
one good thing about that movie. One good thing. James Spader.
Spader was good. That's it.
But there's actually something, though. This might be a controversial take between the Whedon cut and the Snyder cut now that we've seen them both. Everyone online is complaining, oh my God, Joss Whedon, cut a person of color out. Cyborg's got a full story. I hated his story in Snyder cut. I think the character worked better in the Whedon cut because there are just so many. So his dad built him to be like the ultimate weapon and hacker thing. Let's just give that to an emotionally disturbed teenager. And then his whole fuck the world and all this and his nonsense. I actually think he's a bigger asshole in the Snyder cut. He was a more relatable character in the Whedon cut, shockingly enough.
I could not disagree more. I loved Ray Fisher in the Snyder Cut. I thought he played the asshole character the way I was hoping he would, and it landed. But I understand not liking it. I 100% get it.
My only experience with Cyborg is through Doom Patrol, the TV series. And he's kind of an asshole in that, too. So I didn't mind him in this. The reason I finally figured it out, folks, in case you want to know why the Snyder Cut is 4 fucking hours long, it's because it contains 2 origin movies shoved into a 2-hour movie. So basically
three. Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg. They all get an origin movie.
I don't count Aquaman's.
You should, because it was an origin story for Aquaman. It 100% was.
Where's Tamora Morrison and Nicole Kidman? That's his origin story.
It is because they added it into Aquaman. I mean, hindsight being 2020 again, right?
I could not remember when this takes place as opposed to Aquaman. So I'm just like, does he know Amber Heard? Does he know Willem Dafoe?
Well, that's what Josh
Have we already
mentioned.
had this adventure? Yeah. And then at one point she talks about what a dick his brother is. I'm like, okay, I guess we haven't had that adventure yet.
No,
so
we hadn't.
I thought that he didn't even know about the Atlanteans at this point. So yeah, but I will say, like, all of the Flash stuff, all of the Cyborg stuff, I mean, that to me makes up the majority of the shit that was cut out of the Snyder Cut, the stuff that Whedon just chopped it out kind of thing. Because these are full movies that are inside of here. Maybe not like, to Josh's point, maybe not like a redemption story for Cyborg. Maybe I would hate the Flash if I saw this as his origin story. I probably would, because he's kind of a spaz, maybe a little bit retarded. But man, I'm just like, oh, no wonder this is so much, because there's so much fucking Flash and Cyborg in here. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have in my notes here, I wrote, this is an origin story with Justice League, the Justice League as we saw it in Snyder Cut. I had in my notes, it's 3 origin stories with Justice League tacked on, because that's what it is. It is 3 movies. We're never gonna see that Flash character the way he is in Justice League ever again. He's gonna be different in the Flash movies. So this is the version of the Flash's origin story. We're gonna see Billy Crudup's not even gonna be in the Flash movie. So
and I mean, okay, Mike pointed out and he did the 4-hour runtime.
We're on video, so it's very effective.
Yeah. I'm for you so. It's from an old Bill Cosby routine from before we knew he was a rapist. But like all the stuff with Iris West could have completely been cut. I actually thought she was going to be a character that might have had dialogue besides, "Oh, come on," when her car didn't start.
Oh, is that who that is?
Yeah,
I didn't know she
it's
was
his
supposed to be a
future.
character.
It's his future wife.
Yeah, it's his wife.
Wow.
You are my future wife.
Again, I know nothing of these characters.
Mike, that's how inconsequential it is. That she doesn't even get an on-camera name.
Wow.
Yet
But she is his...
what?
Yeah.
7 minutes on her?
My wife.
My future wife. We expecting. It's fucking insane, because again, you would have to be someone who has a cursory knowledge of the comic books to know who that is.
I picked up the Groot reference because of him saying that he knows gorilla sign language, but that was it.
Gorilla Grodd, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I didn't pick up on that reference, but I also didn't think that. I mean, sure, okay, yeah.
That also, like you said, that whole scene cuts out the brunch thing, and I don't have any friends, and I don't understand how people work. I mean, really, I would say putting him beyond on the spectrum. Like, they really, like I said, Whedon makes him a total spaz, and I'm just like,
I don't have any friends is in the Snyder Cut, though.
It is? Okay,
yeah,
that's
it is.
fine.
That's like the first thing he says to him
stuff,
after.
Right?
Yeah, the brunch stuff isn't in there, but as soon as Batman goes like, "I want you to join the team," he's like, "Yes, I'll join. I don't have any friends." It's like, okay, weirdo. Like,
you probably compressed them in your mind because you watched them so close together, Mike.
Well, and then there's also like the stuff when he's coming out of the building where I guess the Flash lives in a warehouse, which is kind of cool.
But he's
It's a pretty cool
poor.
warehouse.
He's poor.
Yeah,
He's
so
poor, and
poor.
he lives in this giant warehouse with tons of TVs, and this
Yeah.
asshole can't pay for school? What insanity is this
And
shit?
he has NASA technology for a costume he's building for himself.
But he's poor.
Yeah.
He can't go to school. He could sell that suit for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, what?
You could
but
he could
also,
steal money so easily as the Flash. I'm sorry.
But also notice, he's still working on the suit, he says. But Suicide Squad took place before, and he captured Captain Boomerang in Australia. So
Wearing
was
the
he
suit.
already operating as the Flash?
Yeah.
This movie, look, before we talk about the Snyder Cut, because we're still kind of just punching holes in it before we really take a knife and
I
stab
thought you
it.
had taken us there, Chris.
Sure. Let's go there. Let's go there. But I think we do need to address something that's going to be an overarching thing we talk about here. There are a
Overwrought
lot
music?
of the continuity doesn't make sense.
No.
Right here and now, let's hang a lantern on it, move on. Josh's lighting just went super dramatic too. He looks like the Overlord now. It was perfect
Because
for a second.
my computer monitor just went into sleep mode for a second.
It was great. But we have to address, the continuity is going to make no sense because this is essentially operating inside of its own closed loop. So
It is absolutely bizarre. I was just like, when is this in the story? What is happening? How long has happened? Because there are so many times where it's like, okay, I'll go, like Diana's like, you go get the Flash, I'll go get Cyborg, and then it feels like a half an hour passes, and then we see her and Cyborg, and I'm like, what? Wait a second.
what does that
I
remind
mean,
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Lord of the Rings if you didn't know what you were doing.
yeah,
It,
exactly.
like that is the okay. So look, I'm gonna get this out of the way, and both of you are probably about to get real mad at me. I actually liked the Snyder Cut. I actually enjoyed it. I would actively watch more movies in the Yeah, and look, I get it. Like I understand, but here is why. This is so fucking weird that I'm here for the weirdness. I want to see how weird this can get. Because when I was watching the Snyder Cut, and yeah, I may have been under the influence a little bit, I still could not process that what I was watching actually was real. It was so weird that this movie came out, and it is not the movie we saw from Whedon. It's not at all. It is such a different experience, completely different. Yeah, there's, they're gonna fight under Gotham Harbor. They're gonna fight at the power plant in whatever unnamed Eastern European bloc country. They're gonna do this. They're gonna, he's gonna go to that little Nordic fishing town. But you know where it's going, but you don't know anything that's going to happen there. And boy, like, I can't even begin to be as surprised as I am that I enjoyed this shit, because Mike knows very well that I went into this absolutely being convinced that this was going to be the biggest waste of 4 hours. And yeah, about an hour and a half of it was a waste of time, but there were 2.5 hours in this movie that I genuinely found compelling and interesting. You notice I didn't say good. I said compelling and interesting, because it's just weird. It's just a weird thing that exists.
Okay, so we got to deal with this. So I hated this. This thing was a fucking slog to get through. But let's put the elephant in the room away right now. So a lot of people online, the response, and I don't know, Chris, if you have the same ideal, are going, oh my God, this is so good. This is the version that should have been released. No. Warner Brothers was holding him back.
This movie would never have come out in theaters, period. There's no way this is a viable theater release, period.
No.
But not just that. This is him after seeing the response of Aquaman and all that. This is him doing his cut in hindsight. Let's say Warner Brothers would have allowed a 4-hour cut to theaters. That's not the version that you're watching now. And that's what people, just the Snyder cultists keep, this is, a redemption for us. This is what should have come out.
Oh.
This isn't what was going to come out, people. Okay?
No, it's retroactively changing history to fit the narrative now when everybody knows how this worked. Yeah, no one in this podcast is going to sit here and pretend like this movie that we're seeing today is the movie that we would have seen should he been given the opportunity to release it 3-4 years ago now. That movie would have been a different monster, but a monster, it would have been close to what we're seeing now, but it would have been a darker, more dour piece of film. Because all the just have faith shit, like, no. None of that was in the original movie. We all know it because it wasn't in Batman versus Superman. That was never the mindset. That was never the theme or the goal of the movie, was to show how much faith they have in Superman. That was added in now because, like you said, Josh, it's changing history after the fact and saying, oh yeah, well, you can't tell me that I wasn't going to do that because you don't get a chance to see the 2017 version. So here's the 2021 version. Take my word for it. This is what it was going to be.
Well, there's also, I can almost guarantee all of the post-apocalyptic, the nightmare vision stuff, that was all redone because Amber Heard said she was called back for reshoots. So Mara being in that, the Deathstroke actor Joe
Manganiello,
him, he was called back. So all of that stuff, and we know Jared Leto as the Joker was a callback. All of that stuff was 2020 footage.
Oh yeah, you can tell by Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is tiny. He is a tiny man.
The Martian Manhunter Ben Affleck scene. Look at how skinny Ben Affleck is.
Yeah.
In that. He is not the buff Bruce Wayne he was during the real shooting in 2016. So you get that, but I do want to mention, speaking of the Joker scene. Okay, first I hate Jared Leto, and his Joker was just whatever. But
he's damaged, Josh. Be nice.
Twisted.
He wasn't damaged yet. He didn't have the tattoo in this, so he wasn't.
I think he got it. He must have got it removed.
I was about to say he has some makeup on it.
Yeah, he's got a lot of makeup on.
Oh yeah.
But he makes a reference to if you kill me, who's going to give you a reach around? And I thought that can't be a reference to what I think it is, because before Justice League, or maybe this was during Batman versus Superman. Snyder was like, this is so dark. Batman, I want Batman to get raped in prison by the Joker in my movie. And fans were like, what the fuck? Was that a joke to that? That whole reach around thing? Was that a fucking rape joke?
Josh, I feel like there were a lot of jokes in this movie that were meant to be taken as like a nod to the fans who got this made. There are a couple lines in the Snyder Cut where I'm like, it's like that Joss Whedon I tried thing where it's like, am I picking up on something here that I'm not supposed to? That's not meant for me?
Is that like when the guy says, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch?
No, that's just a shameless ripoff of someone else's funny online video that they didn't give credit to. So, Mike, I'm curious because Josh and I have kind of sat here and given our thoughts. Mike, what did you think of the Snyder Cut?
Well, before I even say, I just wanted to talk about the people who were so petulant about this Snyder Cut. I mean, Josh, you used the word cult, and I have to 100% agree. Like, I tried my best to block every way that you could write Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut, hashtag this, hashtag that, just in regular plain language. I think I have blocked on Twitter every single use of Snyder that you could possibly get. Like, I probably wouldn't even be able to see our tweets about tonight's live podcast because I have blocked everyone, because everyone who wanted this just seemed like an asshole.
But Mike, if you do that, you're not going to be able to hear about Snyder pretzels.
That's okay. I don't even know what those are.
Snyder of Hanover, bro. It's a pretzel brand. What about Rob Schneider, famous anti-vaxxer Rob Schneider?
Yeah, well, there's another good reason.
But
You know what? And this is, and Josh, you had brought it up early on, and I think before we talk about it, this is worth mentioning. I know we, on the last episode of the Culture Cast that came out yesterday, we talked with Richard Haddam, who's a screenwriter in Hollywood, and we talked a little bit about this with Richard, about does this set a dangerous precedent for the industry? Oh, yeah. And Richard says no. And I think Richard's justification from an industry veteran, because Richard has been a veteran of the industry for 25 plus years now, I think his answer makes sense, and I'm starting to see where he's coming from. Because there is that reactionary in me that's like, oh my God, does this mean we're going to get Last Jedi, the non-Rian Johnson cut? No, it doesn't. I don't think, I think if another studio kowtows to this.
Kowtows. The pronunciation is kowtow.
Kowtows.
They're not like tying the
camel. If they camel toe to the fans' will, I don't know how many other movies that could happen with. Unless all of a sudden directors are just going to start coming out of the woodwork and being like, you know, David Ayer, who's like, Suicide Squad, the Ayer cut's coming out.
That, though.
But that's another DC movie. It's a DC problem. It's not an industry problem. It's clearly a DC problem.
No, it is. Like Rocky IV, we're getting a director's cut of that.
But director's cuts have been around since forever. A director's cut is not new, though. That's the problem here. Like, I don't really understand the argument against... I get why people didn't want the Snyder Cut to happen, but the Snyder Cut happening the way that it did is the only way this movie could happen in the social media era. I mean, director's cuts for Blade Runner and shit back in the day, those happened for different reasons, but you could ostensibly make the case that they are happening for a similar reason. Except in that case, the director had the ability to fix it on his own. In this case, the director didn't have the ability to fix it on his own, so he had to ask the studio, and the studio forked over money and then ended up forking over more money. But director's cuts have been around forever. They're a recognized part of the industry.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I think is dangerous. I think this is dangerous because in the case of Blade Runner, Heaven's Gate, whatever, the director was like, hey, I want to go back and fix my work. This was whiny, bitchy fans demanding it, and then the studio kowtowing to them. See? Kowtow. And, hey, it still doesn't bother me as much as when Mike says "mun mnemonic" when he talks about Johnny Mnemonic. When he pronounces the M, I just get so mad. But
wait till you listen to people getting mad about me saying Matchy Manito on our Kolchak podcast, Ron.
That's just me, Chris.
And Richard.
But it's like, no, this sets the precedent. If the fans bitch about a movie enough, that the studio has to acquiesce to them.
I think Snyder Cut is the exception that proves the rule. The bitching about Last Jedi was worse than this. The bitching about Last Jedi is worse than the Snyder Cut by heads and shoulders, and it's more toxic. It's more vile. It is the worst of the bitching about Last Jedi is the worst of a fan base because it's people that are complaining about, you know, how people of color are being treated and how they don't want them in their movie, how actresses who are Asian, their characters are worthless, how they're attacking actresses and actors and shit. Like, the Snyder Cut was, like, as terrible as this is going to sound, the Snyder Cut was actually supported by the actors who fucking made the movie. Like, that in and of itself proves to me that while I agree with both of you, that the Snyder Cut's online fervor was being stoked by people who I more than likely don't want to be friends with because their personalities may be a little too rabid to get in the way of seeing common sense.
I also think, though...
I applaud them in a way.
I'm of two minds when it comes to this thing's finally out. One, well, we finally got to see it, and we know that while it was better than the Whedon version, it's still a piece of crap. But on the other side, it's... now these people will finally shut the fuck up. Oh, except they won't. Right. Now they're going to be lording it over you. Look at how much better it is. You just can't win.
But they were always going to do that. Like, that's an inevitability of the situation. We talked about this just recently. I mean, I said this on the Culture Cast. It doesn't matter if this movie is good or not. Zack Snyder won. He wins. He fucking won. He got his movie out that he should have, for all intents and purposes, he admitted he didn't think this movie was ever going to come out. He has said I can't believe I'm sitting here now talking about my version of the movie. And frankly, I can tell you both this with a straight face. If you had told me in 2019, either of you, that in 2021 we'd be sitting and actually reviewing the Snyder Cut, I would have told you both you're fucking high. And not high in a good way, like literally out of your minds.
Well, I would have said that the Snyder Cut doesn't exist.
Exactly.
No matter how many times he said it. And then when I read about what they had to shoot, I mean, I was just perusing the interview with Ray Fisher and Manganiello, and he's just like, I had to go back. This is Fisher. I had to go back and reshoot every single scene I was in. None of the stuff that you see in the theatrical cut with me, except for the Gotham City police rooftop scene with J.K. Simmons, is original. Everything else I had to reshoot. So maybe it was shot, but the thing that we saw today when the Snyder Cut came out is not this mythical thing that they were talking about. Like, I don't think that exists.
That's my issue with all of this. My issue is not with the movie coming out. It's exactly what you were talking about, Josh. It's these Snyder fanboys who are not going to... if you just admitted to me that you realize that what you're getting now is a film that Snyder is making, like you said, Josh, after the fact, with hindsight 2020 being... look at how bad all these other movies I've made have been received. Let's see if I can maybe tone my nonsense down for 4 hours. Okay. Like, it's fucking wild to me because they, like you've said, Josh and Mike, they won't even admit that much. They won't say, yes, this movie isn't the Snyder Cut I was vying to get released. I was sitting and championing the Snyder Cut to come out. While I am watching a Snyder Cut, this is not the movie I should have gotten. The movie I should have gotten, I will never get, but they got something, so there you go.
But it's kind of like when you give in to an SJW, you know, if you give them an inch, they take a mile. The Snyder cultists are already asking for the mile. Now that this has come out, they're saying, we want this as the DCEU continuity, right. And we want all future movies to play off of this, not play off of the stuff that came after of Aquaman and Shazam. And if they're now, because they have it in their heads are blown up, if they're loud enough, AT&T, remember, this isn't necessarily Warner Brothers, it's AT&T that overruled them on the Snyder Cut. AT&T might say, hey, if they're willing to pay for it, you give them what you want. And that is, to coin a dumb phrase, an old phrase, the slippery slope. You gave them an inch, now they want a mile. And
but unfortunately, if this movie is successful and makes money, you know what? The part of this that I don't think a lot of us like to really swallow is this is show business. They want to make money. This makes them money. They're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's sad and unfortunate, and other things aren't going to get made because they're going to throw more money at Zack Snyder. But unfortunately, if this does the numbers, I kind of think it's going to, and I think we all realize it's going to do, because not only did the Snyder Cut come out, the Snyder Cut came out when we can't go see fucking movies, so everybody who has HBO Max is fucking watching it. They're going to look at it and go, oh my God. This is the gold mine that we can just lower ourselves. Look for what's the Arkenstone here? Is Zack Snyder the Arkenstone for this franchise? Because if the Snyder Cut was being watched by everybody and it has his name on it, it's more successful than the Whedon version. HBO and Warner Brothers and AT&T are gonna back a Mack truck up to his fucking house and say, "Come on back, Zack. Give us whatever the fuck you wanted because it's making us money."
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what you don't want, because this emboldens the fans and let's just say AT&T or Warner Brothers to just kowtow. I didn't mean to keep using that, but like I was joking at
the
Chris.
Word of this podcast is kowtow.
Yes. Scream whenever you hear the magic word.
Exactly.
It will bow and kneel to fan service, and they'll stop making movies that are movies, and they'll start making it for fans. Because I can guarantee you, the Snyder Cut possibly is an exception to this because of all the hype around it, but this movie was put together by AT&T for a relatively small group of people. Your average person who saw Justice League in 2017 is going to be curious. Oh, there's a new version of it. Okay. They're not going to be like, well, they screwed this up and Superman shouldn't have acted like that and the look was annoying.
But guess what? A number is a number regardless of the reason that they watched it.
I saw so many people, me included, talking on Twitter that were just like, my wife or my girlfriend or me, we had no idea that there was any controversy around the Justice League movie. And what is this new thing? What is a Snyder Cut? They have no idea. And I'm just like, that's kind of the world I want to live in. I wish I didn't know all of this stuff. I wish I didn't look at the preview for Army of the Dead or whatever the fuck his new movie is and go, oh, look in that vault. There's all these film cans. He's making a reference to the Snyder Cut. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to live in this world anymore.
It also comes down to that there's just something to be said about, I don't know if ignorance is the right word, but people who just go to see, I mean, like we are the exception. We are cinephiles. We're fans of, the genres, these characters. Probably 90% of people who go to see a Marvel movie or a DC movie don't give a shit about continuity or whether the costume is comics accurate or if the actor said the N-word on Twitter or anything. They just go to see a movie.
And isn't it then insane to you that they do cow toe, camel toe to the fucking fans then? Isn't it insane to you then how much they do bow down to the fans, as it were? Because they could literally do what Michael Bay wanted to do to a franchise that I love, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and turn Colonel Shredder into Colonial Shredder and bullshit this franchise up even more than Platinum Dunes already did. To your point, they already do what we're thinking they do to the fans anyways. They're already doing it. Holy shit, Mephisto might be in WandaVision. Motherfuckers who wrote the show didn't even know who the fuck Mephisto was before they went on the press junket. Holy fucking shit. That's mind-blowing.
Fan theories are a whole different... I hate all of
But
these...
who's driving the fan theories?
But that's what I'm saying. I hate all of these YouTube and podcasters that are like... After an episode, well, let's analyze all the Easter eggs and what could this mean? And this for future Iron Man movies. And shut the fuck up and just watch the movie or the show. Just shut the fuck up.
But you can't have it both ways. Because either we like that they don't kowtow to the fans, or we don't want them to. What do we want? Do we want them to but not admit that they do? Or do we not want them to because we're worried that they might do it too much? The problem is we can't have it both ways. And I don't think there's even a good balance here. Because you then get movies like, say, I don't know, what's a movie that has a lot of fan service? Just throw one out that jumps out at the top of either of your heads. Fan service movie 101. What's a fan service movie?
Mike already brought it up with the I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yeah, I mean shit like that. Like who knows that? Random fans on the internet, but they put that in the movie. And like a random fan isn't going to know what that's from, but like they put it in the movie anyways. Like I think we might be upset about something that it's too late to be upset about it. As soon as you start approaching people's fandoms from other media sources, it's too late. You have to kowtow to them or camel toe to them. You have to. You don't have a choice.
Chris, are you saying that bell can't be unrung?
I am saying that bell can't be unrung, and you know it, and we all know it, and that's the problem.
Ding, 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 ding.
I have started to spell it FANDUMB because that is what fandom has become. It's fandom. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The fans are the worst part of fandom.
I can't get behind that because I'm a fan myself and I know I'm not like that. That's the problem.
You have a right to be wrong.
No. It's not a right or a wrong thing. It's merely a way of viewing the fan bases. While I agree that there are a vocal minority of people that drive the problem, like you said, there are like those people who still go see those Marvel movies. They are still fans of Marvel. They're fans of Marvel movies. Just because they don't sit and fuck around on Screen Rant looking up all the nonsense and bullshit doesn't make them any less. I know for a fact that I have friends, some of them are watching this right now, that are fans of Marvel movies. In as much as they watch them, they enjoy them, maybe they go on Wikipedia and read about them, but they're not sitting and watching every single fucking thing like you mentioned, Josh, where it's like, 5 possible things, what does the Darkhold mean in Agatha's fucking lair? Like, yeah, that's for a very specific group of people, but people who watched WandaVision every week for, 8 weeks, those people are fans of Marvel. They are. Just because they don't sit and pour over every detail, like, what does the front of his notebook mean? By the way, this is the sigil of the Yellow King from fucking True Detective. This means jack shit. God. But you know what? It's on my thing, so it must mean something. Not necessarily. But my point is, like, I agree with you, Josh, 100%, that fan bases poison the well, but that's the vocal minority of the fan bases. 90% of those other people clearly love Marvel movies. You know how I know that? Because the Marvel movies are the most successful film franchise of all time. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Those movies will be coming out past the day that I'm dead, past the day that you're dead. They'll be making a Marvel movie until the asteroid is about to collide with this planet and kill all of us. Black Widow 31 will be in theaters and people will be lining up as the asteroid's careening at Earth.
But you also have people, and this goes for the Snyder cultists to bring us back to Snyder Cut. You have these people who, and I'm not saying they're necessarily the problem, they're a problem. They are way too into this stuff. When I saw Avengers Infinity War, now there was some people behind me. I'd never met these people before, maybe late 20s, early 30s. And, you know, everyone dies at the snap and all that. And they were sitting there like, I don't know how I can process what just happened. And I'm like, are you fucking with me right now? This is a movie with, to go to Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith, fictional character.
No, you got to do it. Fictional character.
Yeah. And it's like, he was literally treating Spider-Man dying like he would if his grandmother died.
They're invested in the characters, man.
Problem.
Yeah. But the question I have for you is, are those people fans? Because those people are probably the 90%ers that you were talking about. And I question, are they fans?
Those are fanboys. And okay, fan non-gender specifics. I don't want to gender that. And they are the dangerous part. They've always been the dangerous part. And I'm already seeing that with the Snyder Cut.
But of course, they were vocal before. They're going to be vocal after.
Yeah.
But you lose objectivity at that point. I have seen the word masterpiece thrown around more in the last 8 hours than I have in the last year. And I'm saying this, and I'm not trying to be funny or insulting. If you think the Snyder Cut is a fucking masterpiece, then you have to stop being allowed to make decisions for yourself because you're clearly not living in reality. You need to stop being able to dress yourself because you clearly have no taste. That doesn't mean you can't have enjoyed the Snyder Cut. But if you think it's a masterpiece, you're wrong.
I just think you're entitled to your terrible opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to yuck somebody's yum about that, but I mean, if you had never seen a movie before and you see the Snyder Cut, you might think that it's a masterpiece. But yeah, I am always fascinated by these different cuts of things. I've always been fascinated by it. Just to go back to Superman, to see the television version of Superman, to see the TV version of Superman 2, to just see those alternate takes.
76.
What's that?
King Kong 76, the TV version, better than the real one.
I mean, really? Mike, think about the one movie that you turned me on to so hard that I am a hyper fan of it now, and I give you credit for it, is David Lynch's Dune. That movie has how many goddamn versions? And you and I both can say in unison, the version you watched in the theater is awful. It has so little redeeming value versus the versions you can watch online, Spice Diver, or just even the TV version that I know Lynch disavows, is still better than his original vision for a lot of reasons. But at the same time, like, you have the hyper fans of that too, that sit and say like, holy shit, this is not a Bene Gesserit R. The Kwisatz Haderach this or this. It's like, oh my god, even I'm not that hard into it. But like you said, Mike, like, this director cut thing is like, it's wild. Because even those two versions of Dune are drastically different.
But you also see this being like, the term masterpiece is losing its meaning. I remember when Captain Marvel, of all movies, came out, the reviews were like, the best thing Marvel has ever put out, a masterpiece. And it's like, did you see the same fucking thoroughly mediocre movie I did?
Yeah, I mean, were they just tricked by nonlinear storytelling? Because, yeah, it wasn't very good.
But if you go back and find reviews for when that came out, the word masterpiece was thrown around. And you just kind of like, okay, do words mean different things to you than they do to me? Because clearly I think they do.
Yeah, I mean, that is a term that is abused way too much. Yeah, but yeah, to see this Snyder cut and compare it against the Whedon cut, it is just so. I'll say it. I'll use the word that Clark Kent used. It's swell. It's really swell to see these different versions, just so that we can see how different people approach things and to see some of the ideas that were probably there before. And I'm not going to say they were made up whole cloth, but they were probably, some of these ideas were there before, and you can see where they were. But yeah, I will not say that the Snyder Cut is a masterpiece, but I will say that it was definitely a more interesting, and tonally it felt more of a piece.
Yeah.
And it felt a little more in line with Batman v Superman, which I was not a fan of. So, but yeah, and I can see where you're talking about the reactions. There are things that have lightened up over the last few years because of some of the reactions to Batman v Superman. I think that Snyder will go to his grave talking about how the Martha thing was a stroke of genius. And that's the thing, is that I feel like Snyder is so full of himself that he probably thinks everything he does is genius. And so he probably would say that this is a masterpiece and this is his vision, and will never back down from that.
I would hope so. They gave him $70 million to finish it, and they released his 4-hour movie. Like, that's, yeah. I mean, that's the perspective here that I am looking at this a little differently. And I know, Mike, you just kind of touched on it. Like, look, the three of us can sit and call it the biggest piece of shit this side of that turd in Jurassic Park that Jeff Goldblum looks at, or you can call it a masterpiece. But at the end of the day, Zack Snyder's version of his movie that none of us thought would ever come out came out. You can watch it. You can watch it until the heat death of this planet. And oh, by the way, whether or not you thought this movie was turd or great, it is better than Whedon's version. Therefore, Zack Snyder wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong in saying his version was better. And you know what? I don't want to give Zack Snyder credit because I'm a person who does not buy into the hype of Zack Snyder, just like I don't buy into the hype of Michael Bay. But he was right. His version of the movie was better. But to be fair, that's like saying the bar is an inch off the ground. Can you jump over it? Yes, most people could.
Better does not mean good, though. I mean,
good. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, 100%.
Like, as I was watching this, maybe it's just because I've edited things before, and I am an editor. This thing, there's no reason, zero, none, zilch, nada, that this needed to be 4 hours and 2 minutes long. None. Not only with all of the useless scenes that could have been trimmed out, but, and yes, I'm being jokey here, he has so much slow-mo in this movie. If the whole movie was played at normal speed, it would have only been a 3-hour cut.
You're not joking, though. To be perfectly honest with you, like everybody gives J.J. Abrams like, oh, the fucking lens flare, J.J. It's a bit much. He's going to be on The Simpsons, and they're going to bring lens flare onto The Simpsons. That's how synonymous lens flare is with one director. And slow-mo is so synonymous with Zack Snyder. His kind of love of using slow-mo and his influence by John W. Slow-mo is so obvious in Snyder Cut and in 300 and BVS and Watchmen that, like, at the end of the day, his use of slow-mo at this point, like, why is anyone surprised?
But that brings up the pacing problem. This thing, it's not a movie. It is so poorly. Characters just vanish for 35 minutes at a time. I mean, as I was watching this, I was watching it on my computer, and so I had the little bar going. I'm like, okay, the Justice League's together. We got a half hour left. Oh my God, there's still 2 hours of this. And then the movie ends. There's a 30 fucking minute epilogue. And there's just so much.
Because it's supposed to be an epic. This is supposed to be an epic movie in the vein of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Like, this is supposed to be Zack Snyder's epic film of epic films. It really is.
It can still be epic, but it can be well paced.
Sure, I agree.
Mean, yes.
The where we cut from Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn to Sam and Frodo to Merry and Pippin, like, all of that is perfect.
Of course.
Like, and the scenes will call to one another, and they'll make little references and things, and it fits together like a really interlocking puzzle. Say whatever you will about the Marvel movies, I will go to my grave defending, or just, I'm not going to defend them. I love a lot of them.
Mike didn't want to talk about Infinity War before it came out. You were genuinely excited for Infinity War. I remember how pumped you were for Infinity War.
100%. Yeah. I was so excited for it, and I loved it. When Thor fucking shows up, during the battle, I'm just like, I didn't stand up, but I definitely cheered. And that was another movie where it's just like, okay, we're bouncing around. We've got so many different things all happening. You've got the planet where you've got, Doctor Strange and Iron Man and Spider-Man and some of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you've got this going on over here, and you got this going on, and they all bring it together, and it makes sense. And it's very, you can really tell what things are happening concurrently, what things are happening one after another. Sure. You never miss out on, like, there were times where I was just like, I wonder what Thor is up to. And then boom, it'd be like, almost like they could read my mind, and it'd be on there. It'd be like, okay, great. Yeah, this is perfectly paced. But to your point, Josh, it's just like, okay, well, like I said before, it's like, all right, Diana, you said you were going to go talk to Cyborg, and he's going to go talk to the Flash. And where are these characters, and why did you say you were going to do that? And then it takes a half an hour. There's a moment, I think, where he says, I'm going to go to Iceland or something, and it's just like, well, or no, I know what it is. Batman talks to Aquaman. We see the helicopter land. There's the private jet there, and then so much stuff happens before we're back on the jet with him shaving his beard off. And I'm just like, holy shit, how much stuff just happened? Like, how long is this jet ride?
I mean, there are characters like Lois Lane. She appears near the beginning,
yes.
And then she appears like 90 minutes later, and you're like, oh, that's right, Lois is in this movie.
Yes, yes.
Because this movie, similar to the Whedon film, is just another Frankenstein's monster of a movie. The movies, like, they're releasing a documentary about the making of this movie. Shocking, said no one, given that the making of is probably going to be 9 hours, because Zack Snyder's going to give you every fucking reason why every fucking scene in this entire movie was put where it was put and why it was the way it was. But look, again, the movie is ultimately a hodgepodge of origin stories, deleted scenes, extended scenes, takes that they didn't use the first time. Like, the fact that this movie even exists, let alone, I can still watch it from beginning to end, and do I have, like you guys have said, like, oh yeah, characters are coming in and out, like, it still tells a story, and I can't believe that to some respects. I can't believe that.
Also, to your point, Josh, there are so many moments in this where I'm just like, did this really need to end up in the cut. Like, I don't understand, probably because I'm a stupid person, but I don't understand why we need the Icelandic women to start singing after Aquaman goes back into the sea.
And then he smells his sweater.
It smells his sweater. I'm like, oh, does it smell like Gorton's fish sticks? What is that smell like of fresh Jason Momoa? Did we? Okay, here's the thing. Here's a question from the Whedon cut versus this cut. After Arthur / Aquaman saves the one guy who's in the boat that's like tipped up on its side, and he goes in and he's drinking booze and he's just like, yeah, this is on him or whatever. In the Whedon version, he looks down at his hand and there's like oil or gunk on his hand, and it's never explained. Is that in the Snyder version?
No.
Okay. I don't understand.
He just stands like a badass at the end of the pier and the water comes over him. You know what the problem with this movie is? Like,
which is in the trailer, and I'm just like, okay, that was a cool shot from the trailer. I'm glad that it's back in this.
The Snyder Cut really is Zack Snyder culling everything together that he shot and just trying to make it work. It feels like he just put everything he shot into this movie where he could, just to, like, we don't need to see the Themysciran ritual of taking the arrow and doing all the, like, we don't need to see it
so much.
But at the same time, like, you know what? Who's the only director that I could see spending all the time and effort doing that? It's Zack Snyder, because he's going to do it. He'll do it in slow motion. He'll do all this nonsense. And you see it in 300. You see it in Watchmen. He loves focusing on the minutia of shit and slowing it down. And it's like, I appreciate it sometimes, but boy, it is unnecessary most of the time. And this movie is like the criminal offender of that. You have shit where it's just like characters running on a football field, slowed way the fuck down. And you're just like, man, some of this stuff is not needed.
Go ahead. Did you notice on the football field, Gotham was playing Wisconsin? Just a whole state?
The entire state?
It was Gotham City versus Wisconsin. I noticed that because Zack Snyder's from Green Bay, Wisconsin. So the Wisconsin thing, that I think actually is probably an in-joke because he's from Wisconsin. But I thought that was funny how Gotham City has their own football team and just Wisconsin has their own football team. I just thought that was sort of funny, I noticed.
The entire state. Yeah. I mean, I will defend the slow-mo in a couple instances, which is just the Flash. That's the biggest one. The Flash and occasionally Wonder Woman. Like in that, I call it a robbery scene, even though it's a terrorist scene. You know, I keep thinking that they're actually going to have a reason for doing what they're doing. But yeah, when she's watching the bullets going by her, I'm just like, okay, well, that's cool. And it also reflects that she is very much like Superman in that she can operate at a different level. And I did really like, and this is in both versions, I did really like when the Flash is trying to go around Superman and maybe trying to hit him.
Oh, it's such a good, like, that is such a good scene. It doesn't deserve to be in this movie.
Yeah, I especially like when Superman's eyeball moves and he can see the Flash.
And the Flash's face is like, oh, fuck me.
Exactly.
But like, again, like the slow-mo thing with Zack Snyder has become such a joke at this point that I almost was like, what would be the point of us beating the dead horse? Because everybody else beats the horse to death about the slow-mo, right? It's like complaining about J.J. Abrams' lens flare. Like, we know Zack Snyder's going to overdo it with the slow-mo. We knew that. You could make that joke before. Like, the jokes you can make about this movie are not going to be anything you need to make with, even if you haven't seen the movie. You could say, even if you haven't seen Snyder Cut, it's going to have a ton of slow-mo, and it's super long. You don't even have to watch the movie to know 4 hours is too much. We all knew going into it 4 hours was never going to be justified. Was a given before we started this podcast, before we even watched the movie.
I also... I messaged you guys as I was watching. We were all watching this at different points today. Oh, of course, they fucking go time travel.
Oh,
yeah. But it's like baby's first steps of time travel.
I'm like, is this a fucking modern Star Trek show? You have to. I mean, I know in Batman vs Superman, the "I'm too early" nonsense, was technically time travel, but him first, okay, how goddamn long do the mother boxes take to sync?
Oh my god!
Like 12
yes.
minutes of screen time.
Yes.
How much time in real lifetime versus movie time is the real question, right?
Oh Jesus! There were so many questions about that, and yeah, just like, how long is this taking you?
Deus Ex Mother Box, dude.
Sorry.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and then, of course, we failed. Oh, but we can... What's the point of having the heroes fail if you're going to undo it literally moments later? It's like, would we have been, assuming this is, would have been in the theater, in 2017, would we have been in the theater going, oh my God, Batman and Superman are dead. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
Here's the thing. We might have... given the nightmare stuff. I honestly believe, and Snyder has said it himself, the nightmare stuff was going to be Justice League 2, and I feel like the whole them failing was going to be part of that, and they decided to right turn out of it. And like, that's fine, but but they also wanted to like have their cake and eat it too, because then they're like, but let's put the nightmare stuff in here anyways, because it's fucking cool. Because I know that this is gonna probably piss both of you off. I kind of like Jared Leto as the Joker in this movie.
Let's have our cake and eat it too, because not only will we undo things by the Flash time traveling, and I guess is his power that he can heal himself quicker?
Well, he has a high metabolism.
Okay. Which I kept thinking, like, after he was running around that track and saved everybody, that he was going to, like, collapse, and then he'd wake up and say, has anybody had shawarma? But I thought that would have been a nice little...
Had brunch?
Yeah.
Okay, the whole time traveling thing. So then why can't he run fast enough to travel back in time and prevent his mom being killed and his dad? I mean, once you...
Because he hasn't found the cosmic treadmill yet.
Well, and he says that he made a rule and he's going to break his rules. I'm like, okay. But to your point about having your cake and eating it too, we're going to undo all that stuff, but then we're still going to have the nightmare at the end and say, like, well, nightmare in quotes.
Nightmare with a K.
Be like,
nightmare with a K.
Oh,
get it, Dark Knight.
And then, have all that shit in there too. And I'm just like, when did Batman become psychic? This is interesting.
Well, it's supposed to be, they were sort of setting up Flashpoint, which was a big thing in the comics.
And supposedly that's the Flash movie. Supposedly.
Well, that's gone through every director in Hollywood, so I don't know if that's being made.
How many more horror directors can they hire and fire off that project?
But it's supposed to be Flash traveling back in time to warn Bruce, but he's seeing it as a nightmare. Flash is trying to show him the future he has to prevent, which I think is supposed to be like an injustice. Something happens, Lois dies.
Zack Snyder's already said what it was. Do you want to hear how bonkers ass shit this is? Bruce Wayne falls in love with Lois Lane and can't bring himself to sacrifice himself to prevent the world from ending, because he has to either die by Darkseid or Darkseid kills Lois Lane, and in a moment of weakness, he couldn't sacrifice himself in her place. And that's what Joker's talking about. That's what the pregnancy test is hinting at. That's what the Lois is the key, is that Bruce Wayne, for some fucking reason, falls in love with Lois Lane and can't sacrifice himself at the moment. And so Justice League 2 is them trying to figure out a way to go back in time so that Bruce Wayne can sacrifice himself so that Lois Lane doesn't die and Bruce Wayne dies instead. And then, oh, by the way, Josh, and you're going to love this, Lois Lane and Superman's kid is powerless and becomes Batman. Bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, bum.
Wow.
That's what Zack Snyder said he was going to do, by the way. This is not me making shit up.
I realize that. But does anyone else notice how like in the nightmare sequence, the only characters who survived are characters we know, not some random Atlantean. Oh no, it's Mara.
Right.
Not some random mercenary. Oh, it's Deathstroke, who we just got introduced to. It's like, wait, because they really made this sound like this is the last stand against Superman.
Right.
So isn't it funny? It's kind of like in the Star Trek Mirror Universe episodes. Isn't it funny that all the same types of characters landed in the same spot? You don't have Captain Kirk on Deep Space Nine or anything like that.
Well, you don't have Captain Spock and First Ensign Kirk. It's Captain Kirk and Spock. They're just bad guys.
The only time Star Trek did that right was randomly having Tuvok on the Mirror Universe Deep Space Nine, because he never would have got lost on Voyager. That was a nice little moment, because he wasn't part of Deep Space Nine for non-Trekkies. It was just a nice little thing.
I talked about how awful the music cues were in the Whedonverse. And I thought that they couldn't get any worse in the Snyder Cut, but boy, was I wrong.
You tempted it, Mike. You tempted the universe, man.
Oh, man. I thought that it was bad that the White Stripes were playing when Aquaman goes into the sea. Is it Leonard Cohen? Is it a Leonard Cohen knockoff? I was waiting for Tom Waits to start singing, who I love, Tom Waits. But my God, the song when Aquaman goes into the sea in this one, probably, I think at a different point. No, I think it might still be the same point. Everything's all kind of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly in this one. My God, was that an awful song. And just so many bad music cues in this. And then the use, and I know it was Zack Snyder's daughter's alleged favorite song, and he puts Hallelujah in everything, but then to put fucking Hallelujah in there.
Yeah, but think about where Hallelujah was in Watchmen, and then let that melt your brain pan for a second. I'll wait, because Hallelujah was in the fucking sex scene in Watchmen. And if that was your daughter's favorite song, bro, was it ironic in that movie and sincere in this one? Because the messaging hasn't changed, really.
I want to go back to hit on something you guys brought up earlier. That Zack Snyder, I think, really believes that not just that he made a good movie or that he got his vision on the screen. I think he believes he made art, like masterwork, like I made
capital A.
Because I was like, you hear him talk about how there's going to be a black and white version, and he even has said to
Will
go back.
Will it still be the 4:3 aspect ratio in black and white?
Oh,
I got
the
a problem with
4:3.
I'll come back to the aspect ratio in a moment. But he has also said he has a 5.5-hour cut sitting on his home computer.
Jesus.
Someday.
Release it, brother, man. Snyder Cut ×2.
Release the Snyder cut.
Yeah. Release the Snyder home drive cut.
This is 4 hours and 2 minutes of us watching this man suck his own dick, come in his own mouth, swallow, and tell himself he's a good girl. Okay? This is almost a delusional level of, I didn't make a movie. I made the movie. The movie all movies will be compared to. When that little introduction that is on HBO Max, it's only like a minute long or whatever, he comes across so arrogant in that. I wanted to punch my computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
Am I the only one that picked up on just how arrogant and pretentious he seems now?
Yeah. No, you're not the only person that picked up on that. And I mean, Chris, you were reading to us some stuff the other night when we were recording one of the Culture Cast episodes.
Yeah.
That was just amazing.
Let me pull that one up.
Yeah,
let me pull this up. So this is a actual question posed to Zack Snyder, and this is his actual response. Since Justice League, there have been other DC movies like Aquaman and Shazam that have gotten more enthusiastic reviews and made more money. Does that sting for you that your films didn't achieve that? That's the question. Here's the answer per one Zack Snyder read verbatim. I couldn't be happier. It doesn't sting for me at all. Those movies are cool and they're really well made and excellent. But BVS, love it or hate it, it's probably the most mentioned movie in hashtags and references. It's the closest thing to a cult film that could exist at this level of pop culture. Am I a provocateur? A little bit. Is it my job to make pop culture pieces of candy that you eat and forget about the next day? Nah. I'd rather fuck you up in a movie than make it nice and pretty for everybody. Let's be frank. There's no cult of Aquaman. Jason is a force of nature, and by all means, I want there to be 100 Aquaman movies, because he's an awesome guy. But it's not controversial, and I have purposefully, because I love it, made the movies I make difficult.
Okay. All right. Do you guys remember maybe 2-3 years ago, there was like a panel discussion with William Friedkin and Nicholas Winding Refn, and it was great to see live, where Nicholas Winding Refn, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, was saying that I think it was Only God Forgives he was talking about at the time, or it might have been Neon Demon, is one of the greatest movies of all time, and it's up there with Citizen Kane. William Friedkin thought he was joking, and you can see the blood drain out of Friedkin's face when he realizes Winding Refn's not joking. He really believes he made not just a modern classic, but a classic. How do you get to that point of delusion? How? Snyder cultists. Is Zack Snyder a terrible filmmaker? No, he's not. He, just like Michael Bay, these are guys who know how to shoot a scene. They know how to move a camera. They know great lighting. They just don't know how to tell a good story. I don't think Zack Snyder is a bad filmmaker. I think he's an awful storyteller. And those are two very different things. But he seems to believe he is the next fucking Orson Welles, when in reality, he's probably closer to the next David Dakota, just on a bigger budget.
I mean, I think the issue with it is if you're in the industry that you're in and you're at the level that they're at, I'm not sure I could blame them for believing that, because that's probably what they hear all the time. I forget what director it was, but Richard was talking about it on the last Culturecast, Mike, where it's like...
I was talking about Bergman.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually Cullen Gallagher of pulp-serenade.com. He was actually talking about how he couldn't get an honest answer from anyone anymore after he made The Seventh Seal, because everybody thought he was a genius. I guarantee you Zack Snyder doesn't care what the people online say that don't like him, because he has enough people that will say his movies are good to just drone it all out. And frankly, if I were in his position, if any of us were in his position, would we do any different in some respects? Like, we got to this point, what the fuck do I care what other people say? The studio's still gonna pay me. I'm still gonna work. I still get to work with Batista and Netflix and Hulu and Warner Brothers. Like, I probably wouldn't care either. I agree with you, Josh. It looks very conceited. It looks very stuck up. You look like you've lost self-awareness, and the optics of it are really bad. There's a lot going into this that we can't comprehend just based on the fact that we don't have people telling us every day, dude, BVS was the best movie I've ever seen. Like, if you heard that every day, your head would be as big as a fucking balloon too, and you would float to the top of every room, and they'd have to pull you down.
But you also have filmmakers who, yes, they go through that phase, and then they kind of go, I want to know if I really am a good filmmaker. Now, I'm just throwing out a wild example here. Everybody hates Uwe Boll. I think he's made a few good movies.
I like Uwe.
He's funny. He wants to box his critics in the ring. That's fucking hilarious.
I genuinely think Assault on Wall Street is a fantastic movie. I genuinely loved that film. But let's say, for the sake of argument, okay, Uwe's name, whether we like him or not, is Poison. I would love to have Uwe Boll secretly direct a film under a pseudonym, have it come out, everybody gives it accolades, and then, it was Uwe all along. Can you imagine what that would do for your ego in a good way, to go, maybe I am actually talented and it's not just my name? Like, on the opposite way, like, look at Max Landis. The man is utterly talentless.
Do we want to look at Max Landis? Are you forcing us? Are you holding our eyelids open like in Clockwork Orange? Look at him! Gaze upon Max Landis!
You will fall. But, like, look at Max Landis in the way of, He's utterly talentless, but to hear him talk, he's one of the biggest genius writers out there, and just studios just can't comprehend his genius. That's a man who's gotten by on his last name rather than his talent. And Zack Snyder, I think, is moving into that area of no matter what he does next. Like Army of the Dead, I haven't even seen a trailer for, so I don't even know what it's about. I know it's a zombie movie. Maybe it'll look like a Zack Snyder movie. Maybe it won't. I would love to see, because I think this is the ultimate tell for a big budget filmmaker to find out if they actually have talent. Because I think this would make a great reality show pre-pandemic and everything. You take an A-list filmmaker, James Cameron, Zack Snyder, Michael Bay. You give them $500,000 and say, the movie comes out next week. Let's see what you got. A real filmmaker would be able to make a releasable film on that. I don't think Zack Snyder could. I think he's grown so big, not just full of himself. I don't think he could make a Roger Corman style movie. Whereas he's just going to keep getting bigger. Like I remember.
Do you think any of those directors would though? Do you think if posited with that, you think James fucking Cameron, Mr. likes to suck his own dick on camera more than anybody else, who's just as bad as James Cameron isn't some fucking saint. Holy shit, he's just as bad.
From Corman.
Sure, but I don't think James Cameron could make a $500,000 movie anymore either.
Well, he might remember what it was like when he was making Terminator. And Zack Snyder might remember what it was like when he was making his version of Dawn of the Dead.
James Gunn's version of Dawn of the Dead.
But that was still a pretty huge budget film. I mean, I remember when Pain and Gain came out, Michael Bay said he was returning to his low budget roots for a $28 million film. That was his low budget roots. I don't know if Zack Snyder could make a film for $1 million anymore. You get to a certain point where it's just all waste. And when I looked at Justice League Snyder Cut, I don't have my computer up right now because of my computer problems. What is the total budget for Snyder Cut that's at least been released? The above the line
$70
budget.
million, right?
No.
The whole thing.
Oh.
I'm asking the total budget for what Snyder Cut would have cost.
Did you hear how much Warner Brothers gave him to begin with to finish it? And then how much do you know how much they initially gave him to finish the Snyder Cut? $30 million, and that wasn't enough.
Yeah, which plays into my point.
Sure, yeah.
I donated my salary because I believe in this project so much.
Yeah,
thanks.
Sure. But, I'm just going to estimate while Mike's looking it up, probably 200 million, maybe a little bit more than that, for this 4-hour movie. It doesn't look like it needed to be that much. Maybe I am just getting jaded. Maybe we're getting off topic. I don't know. I don't think movies need to cost as much as they do anymore. I don't, like, when I see just some random direct-to-video movie okay, I'm going to go totally off topic for a moment, but it's still related. The Resonator Miskatonic U for Full Moon. I was knocked on my ass when I found out that cost $100,000. That movie looks like a $5,000 film. I was knocked on my ass that cost $100,000. And Zack Snyder, I think AT&T gave him an unlimited blank check and just said, keep going. I mean, the fact that he has a fucking 5.5-hour work print or version on his computer says this man does not know when to stop. And what we just watched, what we experienced today, I think proves that. The man, it's almost like...
How do you feel about George Lucas, though? Because doesn't George Lucas not know when to stop either? I mean, isn't he like the other, like, case A, case 1A, case 1B, people against George Lucas? Man, like, isn't George Lucas the guy who patented he doesn't know when to quit? Wasn't that the George Lucas thing for ever now? Is he doesn't know when to quit?
But there's also an aspect of ego that comes involved with, like, the Snyder Cut. Like, we were talking about all the stuff that could have been cut. Now, I haven't heard Snyder say this, but years ago, Tarantino was talking to Video Watchdog when Grindhouse came out. And remember how in the Robert Rodriguez segment, there's the whole missing reel, and it's a fun thing. But Tarantino put the missing reel back in. Rodriguez never shot it. He scripted it like that.
Yeah,
and
because he knows how those movies are supposed to work, and Tarantino had no fucking clue.
Right. But when Tarantino was asked why on the DVD the missing reel was put back in, and I'm quoting, the footage was just too good to not be seen.
Oh, God.
And that's what I feel the Snyder Cut is. I feel he couldn't cut any of this because he was probably going, but I shot this scene so beautifully. It has to be in the movie.
One of the folks watching on YouTube, Dustin Rutledge, made a...
That's one of my friends. What are they asking? What sort of sordid questions are they asking?
It wasn't a question. It was a fantastic observation that we need to know how picky Alfred is about making his tea. I mean, that scene, what the fuck is that doing there? What, this whole idea of everything being precious, it's like, what's that scene doing there? What's the Icelandic women singing thing going on? There's so many like little moments where I'm just like, God, yeah, like forgetting the slow motion, just all of the little things where you're just like, did this really need to be here? Do we really need to have this in the film? We could easily lose at least a half an hour, without.
There are two different versions of that kind of thing. Like I said, I think Snyder, like Tarantino, is just so in love with their own footage they can't cut it. How long has it been since either of you guys have seen the original Friday the 13th from 1980?
I've never seen it.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Okay. Chris?
Hey, Josh, I don't know if you know this, but Mike doesn't gravitate towards that kind of movie sometimes. You should hear Mike talk about Tales from the Crypt. It'll make your skin crawl. Especially good episodes of the show.
I've tortured him on my show. He's threatened me a few times when I've made him watch some movies he really regretted watching. But, okay, Chris, have you seen the original Friday the 13th?
Yeah, once.
Okay, I rewatched the whole franchise with my girlfriend about 2 years ago. She'd never seen any of them, so we watched them all. And the first film has got so many of those exact kind of scenes. Like, does this need to be here? Why is this here? We're watching her make coffee, the entirety of her heating the water, putting the stuff in. In Snyder's case, I think this is just too good. It's genius. In Friday the 13th's case, it's, if you cut all that stuff, you have a 45-minute movie.
Right. Exactly.
So there are two different, the reason I brought up Friday the 13th was you needed all that to get to a 90-minute runtime. Snyder needed to lose all that to get to a 90-minute runtime. It's sort of it's like a double-ended dildo. You're getting fucked on both sides. Sorry, I got a little randy there. Sorry.
It's okay. We all like ass to ass.
I was about to say, what's wrong with that?
You never go ass to ass.
I didn't take this out for air. Yeah. And then, you get weird things like how much movie time does it take for these fucking mother boxes to sync? And just so many, like, there was talk at one point about them breaking this into 4 1-hour chunks. And I don't think that necessarily would have worked.
Given how it was 6 chapters, how would that have worked?
Well, it's 6 chapters plus the epilogue, and the epilogue, to your point from earlier, Josh, is what, at least a half an hour. So, yeah. I mean, it was bizarre because I took a pee break at hour 3, and I think it was right around the time that part 6 starts, and that's like the first time Superman says a word, and we really, it's interesting how the pacing is so different between the two because of the 4 hours versus the 2 hours, and the whole idea of like, when they come up with the idea of we have to like jumpstart Superman with the mother box, it's like they come to that very quickly in the 2-hour movie because they have to, because otherwise what else are we going to do? But in the 4-hour version, it takes so long.
It takes 2.5 hours.
Yeah, to just come up with the idea, much less actually do it. And then like I am so curious. I would really like, I mean, Josh, I know you remember pop-up video from VH1, and Chris, you might remember that as well. I would love a pop-up video of this, as far as like, this was shot at this point, and this was shot at this point, and this was shot at this point, because I'm just like, okay, was the idea, because when Barry is running to give that little like David, or sorry, not David, God and Adam like spark of life to the mother box as it hits the water, there's actually a little bit of time travel in that as well. Things go backwards in that for him to touch that. And I'm just like, okay, was that always in here? Was that always part of the idea? Were they always going to turn back time a little bit towards the end? Because it was nice that they kind of have a little bit of foreshadowing in that. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Knows what foreshadowing is. That was that word, Mike.
Well, I mean, the fact that he has the name of the pregnancy test be force majeure means Zack Snyder's about as subtle as a 2x4 smashed directly across your forehead. I mean, look, it's that, again, that's one of the things that you could say over and over about Zack Snyder until you're blue in the face is the man does not understand nuance or subtlety. He doesn't. He just doesn't. And like, you know what? Like at this point, holy shit! Like he's made his bones so far that he doesn't have to. Like he could just be like, yeah, I don't give a shit. And you know what? My audience, they don't want to be mollycoddled. They just want me to tell them, like, this is what this is. Like, oh god.
He's about as subtle as Jordan Peele is when it comes to a movie about racism. It's like getting hit. Like, wow, you have no subtlety at all, do you? It's just sledgehammer to the fucking forehead,
of course.
Texas 3 style.
Yeah, well, it's his theme of fatherhood, and even though we got mother boxes galore in this, it is all about fathers. And this whole idea of, we've got, Superman's got my two dads, and now we've got what's his name, Victor Stone, and Silas is talking about how he's a father twice over. He's both the father as far as the sperm donor and raising this kid, but then also he remade the kid because of the change engine and now made him into this thing. I thought the idea maybe in the Whedon version, but I thought the idea was that, yeah, it definitely comes out in the Whedon version. This whole idea of like him changing and him not knowing, like every day he wakes up, he's a little different. Whereas in the Snyder version, it seems like he's always like full metal Victor Stone, the full time. He's always like super, like that weird, like pointy metal that he's got all over himself. And in the Whedon one, he's just like, I couldn't do that yesterday, but now I can do it today, and now I'm changing. It's like he's afraid. He's still, to your point from earlier, Josh, he's still a teenager, and it's kind of this idea of like, I don't know what my body is going to do tomorrow. It's like he's almost going through like another puberty when it comes to his new cybertronic form. And I kind of liked that about the Whedon thing, whereas this, he's just like, I'm a badass, and I'm just going to walk around with a hoodie on my head and all this kind of stuff.
He's also super whiny about it. Like,
yes,
his dad for saving his life. You saved my life, and you made me a monster. So you would have rather died?
Right. That he crushes the tape player. God, I love that it's a tape player too. It crushes little micro cassette tape player when it comes to the father's confession,
But then at the end when he like miraculously makes it come back, it's like
he's got time travel powers too.
So you can just fuse plastic back together.
Yeah.
That's not how that works, man. I know in a movie where aliens exist, I shouldn't be saying that, but there are certain things where that's not how that works.
Yeah. I found it much more appropriate in this one that it is Victor Stone's, or Miles Dyson, I guess, his voiceover going through the end. I think it's Lois Lane giving us a voiceover at the very end of the Whedon version. So I thought it was a little bit smarter having Victor Stone Silas Stone be the narrator Dyson of that last part. Yeah, not Miles Dyson.
They even have they even have a moment where he's holding a thing like in Terminator 2, and he flips the thing and hits the button just like in Terminator 2. He doesn't have the moment where he's like But it's the same thing.
I was speaking of
It's
foreshadowing.
definitely not stunt casting or anything.
Yeah,
speaking of foreshadowing, I was
cybernetics, man. That actor in cybernetics, keep him away from that shit.
I was very confused by the whole scene early on when him and his lab assistant are working together, and it's like, hey, we took this piece of metal and we superheated the inside of it. It's hotter than whatever. This is the hottest thing on Earth. And I'm just like, okay, what the fuck is this? Like, of course, this has to pay off. And then this movie is so fucking long that when Joe Morton destroys himself, it's like, what were you doing, dude? What were you trying to do? And then when Cyborg figures out, like, oh, he was superheating the inside of this, so now we can track it on any thermal thing. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that was like 3 hours ago that you did that.
That also goes to some of the stupidity of this. Like, okay, they made it the hottest thing on Earth. You realize that would be igniting the air around it and igniting, it's like in Blade Trinity, I just rewatched recently, and she has that like bow looking thing that she pulls out, and they say it's half as hot as the sun. And I'm saying, well, science says you activating that sets the whole city on fire. So this is just dumb.
Yeah. Do not talk about the temperature of the sun, please. You do not know.
But it just, I mean, this movie was infuriating. I literally had to keep watching the clock while watching the Snyder Cut, because I kept thinking this thing's got to be almost over. And we're only progressed 15 minutes from the last time I looked, and I thought a freaking hour. This thing just dragged. Now, I actually think it would require some more re-editing. I think it would have worked better as a 4-hour miniseries, as four 1-hour episodes, which obviously, like I said, would have to be re-edited to put a cliffhanger at the right spot and things like that. I actually think this works better probably as 4 1-hour episodes.
I will say that the chapter breaks don't make a lot of sense most of the time, because it's basically like picking up at the exact next scene rather than any sort of reset, any sort of, it's like,
hey, they said change machine. That's the name of the chapter.
It's
might
very
as well put
random.
Might as well put the Clerks music for the chapters on Clerks.
Yeah, it's really kind of dumb the way that they do that. It's like it feels random. I mean, and it's not like however many minutes go by, and there's no cliffhanger before the next thing, because it's just, this is, here we go, here we stick a chapter in here. The things aren't grouped together enough to deserve chapters. So I think the thing I saw the other day, I think I was on Reddit, where it was just like, I can't remember which meme it was using. It might have been the Drake no meme kind of thing, and it was like Josh Whedon's Justice League, the Snyder Cut Justice League, and him saying no to it, and then fan edits of the Justice League and him doing the it's like, yes,
I guarantee you there's going to be fan edits of this.
There's
all over some for the better, some probably trying to get that damn runtime down, and others probably will, let's put all the Cyborg scenes together and all this. This is going to be edited like nuts. But should we talk about what happened last night with Zack Snyder losing his shit on a live stream?
Oh, I didn't even hear about this.
Do you know what the fandom menace is?
Was that the, like, way back when, like one of the first fan edits?
No. It's Chris, do you know about this, where it's like Doomcock, Midnight's Edge, Nerdrotic, these YouTube channels that all link together, and they call themselves the Fandom Menace.
Mm-mm.
And they're always calling out Ryan Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy and Doctor Who, and they're a bunch of morons actually, but that's not the point.
So are they billing themselves as like the fandom cognoscenti?
They basically hold themselves up as, we are holding Hollywood to task. We will not set for your SJW stunt casting and all this. And, sometimes they make a valid point, but not often. Okay. but they were doing a live stream for the right reason, for a suicide prevention thing. They were doing a live stream where they were going to be talking about the Snyder Cut coming out, and all the proceeds would go to suicide prevention. And they somehow got the real Zack Snyder to come on, because obviously his daughter committed suicide. And no matter what I think of the guy as a filmmaker, that is fucking insane that he had to go through that.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the onus for why this movie exists. It will never
one of two.
One of two, yes.
Yeah.
But it is we can't take that away from it, unfortunately. That is a very, like you said, Josh, it's a very serious thing.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear, I'm not making fun of suicide or that his daughter killed herself, okay? I'm not making fun of that or light of that at all. I just want to be
sure.
But so he showed up on this live stream, and I don't know if he was invited or if he just saw it and was like, "Hey, fuck it, I got Skype, or Zoom, I'll hop on." And we got to deviate a moment. You heard about what happened to those 8 Asian women that got shot by the sex addict.
Yes.
Stuff like that. He started linking people like the Fandom Menace to people who shoot other people.
Oh, boy.
Not gone over well today with the Snyder Cut coming out. He basically was like, "You rabid fans, you haters, you're the reason people go crazy." I'm not quoting anything, but if you think I'm making this up, just Google Zack Snyder Fandom Menace. I don't know if maybe the suicide thing set him off, but he was making some outrageously stupid fucking comments last night. And that's why I said, I don't know if we should talk about this or not.
Well, what was he saying?
Like I said, I don't have it up because I don't have my computer. It fucking crashed on me earlier, so I don't have my computer in front of me at the moment. But he was blaming fans and all of we want white males in all the roles, and he's mischaracterizing a lot of things. Mike's looking it up. I'm not lying, am I, Mike?
How do you spell fandom? The way that you spell it?
Fandom.
Okay.
Fandom. They spell it the normal way. But yeah, Zack Snyder Fandom.
They're riding the wave of the Phantom Menace as the name that they've given themselves. The perspective has been lost.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like I said, most of the people in the Fandom Menace, every now and then I'll say, okay, that was actually a pretty
broken
valid
clock
point.
Is rice twice a day, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times I go, "Oh, Jesus Christ, this again." I mean, like Midnight's Edge does a video every fucking week about how Kathleen Kennedy has destroyed Star Wars, and I don't even click on him anymore. I just see it in the title and go, "Oh, good, they're bitching about Kathleen Kennedy again." Hey, look, I don't like modern Star Wars either, but just whatever. But yeah, it's Zack Snyder said some things that are not going to age well. And he did it on a live stream to raise money for suicide prevention. And that seems to be, whether he has these thoughts normally or not, the absolute wrong place the fucking day before this comes out. I guarantee you Warner Brothers looked at him and went, "What the fuck was that last night?"
Well, it kind of strikes me as similar to what happened with Rian Johnson in the fallout of Last Jedi, or even before Last Jedi, where he was like, "Fuck, fans don't know shit." It's like, why would you say that? Like, even if you think that, like, it's okay to think that. I'm not going to get upset at you for thinking that. You're entitled to that belief, but you don't say that on Twitter where the fans are. Especially when the fans don't already like you. At least when there's a vocal group of fans who already have formed an opinion about you that they don't like you.
Yeah.
When it comes to Zack Snyder, it's like Ethan Van Sciver was talking about it. I can't find any quotes from it, but there are copies of the live stream. I'm just talking. I can't find any quotes, as in text.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's like the 4-hour live stream that you can watch, and it's like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about the Snyder Cut for like 2 hours and 42 minutes?
Well, but hey, it also comes down. No, maybe I'm being too picky on someone like Kevin Smith. He held the virtual premiere of the Snyder Cut last night. and Gal Gadot was there on Zoom and all this, and he was all talking about how amazing it was, and he says that about all of the DC movies. One thing, now this one, I haven't seen his review of the Snyder Cut, and this will be kind of funny if he doesn't. When he talked about like Suicide Squad and Shazam and all that, his reviews are twice as long as the movie. He'll put out a 6-hour review for a 2-hour movie. I wonder if his review of the Snyder Cut's actually going to be shorter than the fucking Snyder Cut.
No, it'll be twice as long because there's nobody in the industry who loves hearing themselves talk more than Kevin Smith.
It's just,
I mean, I love the guy to death, but like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, that man loves to hear the wind come out of his own mouth.
But he also, he's lost a lot with me because just...
He's not subjective about anything anymore regarding stuff he could possibly work on. You can't say bad things about DC and then expect that they're going to ask you to come work on Arrow or Flash or the comics, dude. Come on. That's not how the industry works. It'll never be how the industry works. You say good things, they keep you in their good graces. You say bad things, you don't work for them anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime I go up for a job, whether it's writing for something or anything like that, all they got to do is look at my Twitter and say, we're not hiring this guy. But we're never going to hire this guy. He's badmouthed every single person in our industry.
Can I bring up something? And we should think about wrapping because we are getting close to 1 a.m. my time.
I was under the impression we were going to talk about this film as long as the runtime of the film. Given that we haven't really talked about the Snyder Cut in its actuality, which is fine because I don't think there's too much to talk about. This podcast could be 8 hours long.
I actually had somebody say that we should have been watching it in the background and doing a live commentary on it.
I've heard several of those as well. People kept asking, is this a live commentary? I'm like, no, it's not going to be a live commentary.
Well, first of all, I don't think Warner Brothers would allow that. We'd get kicked off all of our platforms pretty quick, I think.
Well, if we didn't show the video, I think we would be okay, or play the audio.
It's true.
Okay.
But Martian Manhunter shows up.
Yeah.
First off, Snyder, for whatever reason, forgets that he already talked about Manhunter being in the movie. So when he says there's going to be a surprise at the end and people, somebody shows up. And so I guess maybe it was the Joker showing up or maybe it's Deathstroke, but it sounded like it was the Martian Manhunter thing. And so, yeah, he shows up at the end, but he also shows up midway through the movie or in chapter 4, let's say.
That was confusing as hell. Why was he doing that with Lois Lane?
That made no fucking sense.
Yeah.
And then after he pretended to be Martha, Did
you say that name?
He leaves the apartment, turns into Martian Manhunter, turns into Harry Lennox, who we've seen in these other movies, and I don't think it makes much sense that Harry Lennox has been Martian Manhunter this whole time, but
because he would have been Martian Manhunter in Man of Steel.
Right. So and BVS, the entire rest of the movie, and I know this makes me sound like a dumb person, but the entire rest of the movie, I'm just like, well, is that character really that character, or is that Martian Manhunter? Like, I just kept questioning every time there was a character on screen. I'm just like, oh, is that really who that is? It's like you do that in the middle, literally the middle of the movie. You introduce a character that can shapeshift, and I'm just like, well, is that really the character, or is that now John Johns? Who is this?
And now we see why they have taken the Skrulls and put them in their own fucking box in Marvel, far away. Because wasn't that the whole thing for the longest time with the Marvel movies, was like, oh my god, in Infinity War, are they setting up that some of the Avengers were actually Skrull the whole time? And it's like, no, you know why they didn't do that? Because you would fucking piss everybody off, even the people who wanted you to do it.
Well, you notice that Nick Fury does eat his toast cut in a triangular way in Infinity War, so it might actually be a Skrull, not the real Nick Fury, because he can't handle his toast cut that way.
I know a lot of people were fucking pissed off on Spider-Man Homecoming when they found out that was not Nick Fury and Maria Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it even undercut their characters.
Oh yeah.
Because, like, there was that moment where he's just I'm going to say Nick Fury is standing there, and he's talking to Marie. He's like, "You got me, I got you," and then he stops the bomb. That's a badass Nick Fury moment. It really gets undercut when you find out that's a Skrull who wouldn't have been hurt even if she had missed.
And on top of everything else, the way that those scenes are always written in those kind of movies is they don't even hint that that's not the character throughout the entire film. And then at the end of the movie, you go, "Oh, that wasn't supposed to be the character." Then why did they act the way the character acted the entire film up until the point that they didn't? That's not how that works. That's lazy. That's lazy. That is twist or gotcha moment based storytelling, and it doesn't work. You know why it doesn't work? Because, like you said, Josh, it cheapens it and it pisses people off. You can do it, but at least foreshadow it. Put a little bit of this or that in there to give it that, oh, maybe something's up. He's acting kind of weird. He's doing things he wouldn't normally do. Not the fucking toast thing. Like something where the audience, even the 90% that you talked about, Josh, would go, huh, that's weird. But no, it's like, oh, we'll just have him act like Nick Fury until he's not. Like, that's so lazy. It's insane.
Well, and that also undercuts other elements of the Marvel stuff. When Samuel L. Jackson actually appeared on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., was that Nick Fury? Or was that Skrull? When Nick Fury died in Winter Soldier, even though it was a fake, was that a Skrull or was that Nick Fury? It undercuts everything. But like even with the Snyder Cut to the John Jones thing, I get the point of the Batman scene where he's talking to Bruce Wayne. I get that.
Yeah,
okay,
that makes sense.
It opens up the world. It opens up the world of the Justice League too.
What was the point of it being John Jones that talked to Lois Lane? It honestly makes more sense if it was actually Martha Kent.
Yeah,
it makes more sense that way.
Well, and I kept waiting for the entire rest of the film. Whenever Martha and Lois were in the same scene, I was waiting for her to say, "That was so nice of you to visit me in Gotham or Metropolis."
But maybe I'm getting too nerdy nitpicky here. But why does he change in the hallway where people could see him, and he's got the big cape and everything? Shouldn't just he be able to shapeshift? Isn't that the point? The costume? So does that mean he's completely naked and the costume is part of his body that he's shapeshifted into?
That's Mephisto, or not Mephisto. That's Mystique rules.
Yeah.
Like when she shapeshifts, she shapeshifts clothes onto herself,
as opposed to just naked.
Yeah.
But you just kind of start asking that question, like, you actually wanted the kid? So if like a kid steps on the cape when you're walking down the hall, is that him actually stepping on like your neck flap or something?
Well, and the thing that I have not understood, and this is something you brought up, Mike, Snyder told everybody, Harry Lennox told everybody, I'm going to be in the movie.
Right.
But he's in the movie and he does nothing.
Yeah.
He's in like scene during the transformation.
Yeah, and then he's used like Nick Fury is at the end of Avengers. Like, oh, isn't that cool? But on top of the scene with Martha, being a fake version of Martha and Martian Manhunter, that scene takes away from that end scene being cool.
Yeah, it does.
Like, that end scene could have been cool. Like, oh shit, Martian Manhunter. It's like, no, we've already seen him. He's just like this weird shape-shifting Martha Kent alien man. It's like, what in the actual fuck?
And you've seen him this whole time. He's been there the whole time.
Exactly.
But it also, think about it like this. It removes Lois Lane's agency in the story.
Yep.
It would have made more organic sense if maybe she saw a memorial on TV of, remembering Superman. And that made her be like, you know what? No, I got to get back on the horse, go back to the Daily Planet and deal with this. It removes her agency when she's only involved in the movie because another character's pushing her in that direction.
Right. Yeah.
It's that whole scene.
Oh, and by the way, Josh, it's a character that we haven't seen until this movie. I don't give a shit that he was in Man of Steel and BVS. That could have been the real person that the character is now imitating too. We don't even know that. I mean, again, that's where you're put in this situation with a character shapeshifting is, when was this ever the real character, or has it been Martian Manhunter the whole time? Not only does she lose agency, but you have Martian Manhunter hanging around throughout the rest of this movie. This lazy asshole doesn't even show up and help them? What is it? Like, he's been here this whole time and he's just hanging out. Like, thanks, man. Right. Like, thanks. Because you're definitely not powerful. You couldn't show up and help them.
Yeah, it's like he gives Superman a run for his money when it comes to his powers. And yeah, he's just hanging around. Yeah, it should have been like, we saw the battle from space or something. We sensed that all this shit happened, and now I'm here for you. It was a really bad decision.
Because obviously Darkseid is a galactic threat, so much so that Martian Manhunter is on Earth to show up and say, hey, we know Martian Manhunter's coming. We're going to bring the universe to you guys, and hopefully we can work and keep him back. That's what Martian Manhunter is saying at the end of the movie, is essentially the Nick Fury's Avengers thing, but saying instead of let's build a team, it's the universe is coming to us. We're going to push Darkseid back. And like, it's like, what the fuck, dude? What? Like, you've been here? What the fucking what? Like,
it also, isn't it convenient that Darkseid has been looking across billions of worlds? Anti-life equation is here. Oh, and I also like,
and the mother boxes are here. Don't forget.
I'm being nitpicky. I love how everyone in this speaks English. Aliens speak English, and they use our measurements. You know, our measurements of time and digits. They use our math. I just love that. I mean, it would have been interesting if, like, Steppenwolf, obviously speaking English to the audience, but if the characters couldn't understand him, that would have been interesting. That he's not fucking speaking English. And isn't it funny that it's English? What if one of the mother boxes landed in France? Would he be speaking ooh la la?
Yeah. Well, the only time we ever get any other sort of language is that very protracted scene of Diana going in and finding, they shoot the arrow, and she gets the arrow, she's holding on to the arrow, she's like taking forever with the arrow, just kind of standing around, and then she like just drops into this cave, and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Was the cave in the temple, I guess? Puts the arrow in, goes in and sees all of these things, and I don't know, it was just all Greek to me. I'm here all week.
I did get the joke. But I also like the fact that they show their security guards. This is a crime scene. She just wanders right in. When Clark, he's got the no shoes and he's just got the shirt and stuff from Smallville. Okay, there was just an incident with an alien coming down from a boom tube, attacking this lab that has biological agents all through in it. Somehow he just wanders in, this barefoot guy who maybe did. And also, they specifically say that the unnamed, not Chernobyl town, it's so contaminated, even the army won't go there. Then why are all the neon signs lit up and there are lights on in the windows? Is someone still paying the electric bill for this place?
They call it something like Paranov or something like that. I Googled it last night.
It's fucking Chernobyl.
As best I could spell what they were trying to say, I was just like, oh, let's try this. And it doesn't exist. So I'm just like, it's Chernobyl. Why couldn't you call it Chernobyl? I guess, I don't know. Who knows why? But that was...
So you wouldn't think there'd be like a rights issue with the TV show. That's HBO.
I mean, even the shot of like the, there's a shot of a playground, and I'm like, okay, I've seen that shot from like the real Chernobyl, like the actual place. I've seen that, and they just kind of recreated it for the film. So I'm like, okay, I guess we have to hide our sources with this. That was so strange.
I said I'd come back to the 4-3 thing. That's right, so I don't forget that. You can tell that they had to do extra editing to make it 4-3, because there were a couple of shots where the camera starts panning, and then they run out, and then there's an edit to what would be the other side of that shot. And then I noticed that more than once, where I'm like, why did you make this 4-3 when it was clearly shot My computer's shutting off again. When it was clearly shot, I don't know if it was 16:9 or 285, but it was clearly shot some form of widescreen. The 4:3 seriously undercuts any cinematography that he had, because the camera movements are clearly based on a widescreen screen.
Yeah.
I don't understand the 4:3 aspect ratio. It didn't make any sense to me.
That's because it was supposed to be shot. It was supposed to go to IMAX, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm guessing.
That's like the only reason. Which, like, I mean, great for IMAX, but not good for home viewing. I mean, I had the ability to watch it downstairs in my home theater, which is a projector and a screen, and it made it better. But if you're watching it on your phone, or you're watching it on your 60, 40, 50-inch TV, it's not great.
No.
I know that we're in keeping with his creative integrity and his vision, and I appreciate that, and great. Chris Nolan says the same shit, and then someone puts Tenet on a Game Boy Advance cartridge just to spite you. I mean, I get it. Like, I appreciate the whole, it's my creative vision, but, like, it's like that Game of Thrones episode where it was too dark and their response was, well, your TVs don't go bright enough. It's like, no, you shot it dark and you're fucking making excuses.
What, are you saying Aliens vs. Predator Requiem wasn't supposed to be an incomprehensible mess?
It was shot like a stage play, okay?
Well, no, for that one, you can actually tell. If you watch the trailer, it's lit properly. They actually shot that properly, and then Fox artificially darkened it to the point where you can't even tell what the hell is happening.
At least the color grading is a lot better in this version. At least it isn't that orange nightmare that happens when they go inside of the hex.
Oh, yeah. At the end of the Whedon one, where it's a red filter, it is a fucking nightmare.
I waited 3.5 hours just to see if this line was in there, and I was amazed that it's there, but it's an alternate take of the "my man." It's like a much more sedate "my man" in this one.
But the booyah, it was not. And I was that line was so dumb in the theater, man. I mean, I get it. The character in the cartoon says booyah. I'm so glad that was not it. I was actually waiting, just like you. I was hoping the "my man" would not be there, because you don't know how much I hate Bro Aquaman.
Oh, God.
I despise
Aqua Bro is just, he's something else, man. And when he fucking rides that body down and then it like slides across, I'm like, you're not fucking Legolas, man. You can't pull that
Don't
shit off.
stand where he stood. How dare you stand where he stood?
I mean, okay. Maybe Jason Momoa has been in something I haven't seen. The man has no range at all. The man is, I mean, he's not Channing Tatum level of a giant block of wood on screen, but Jason Momoa
come on.
not...
Channing Tatum's not that bad. Why don't you go Jai Courtney, Joel Kinnaman, Clint Eastwood's son,
Ty Sheridan.
Sam Worthington. Those dudes are so interchangeable. If you showed a picture of a different one to 3 different people, they would all tell you that was the same person, and they probably weren't.
Jai Courtney surprised the fuck out of me in Suicide Squad when he was one of the best actors in that. I genuinely couldn't believe Jai Courtney gave such an energetic performance in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, well, because they were like, just go be Australian on screen, my dude.
But that's not how I'm used to seeing Jai Courtney.
Yeah, because no one outside of him knows he's fucking Australian. Same people don't know Sam Worthington's Australian either.
Well, he also can't act. I barely know he's human. Did you see that fucking movie where he turned into a Martian?
No, because it looked terrible.
Or no. I think he went to Venus. He turned into a Venusian. Oh my God. And I mean, in Avatar, I thought he was the Avatar because he was just somebody being...
I did see that movie. It was so bad that I blocked it out until you just brought it up.
For some reason, my girlfriend likes it. I found the DVD or the Blu-ray at her place, and I asked her why, and she goes, "You made me watch Mandy. You don't get to judge."
Well, she's not
so
wrong.
much.
She's not wrong about Mandy.
I loved Mandy. Mandy was my best film of 2019. Sorry.
Sizzle over that sizzle, man. That sizzle smells good when you're real close to it, but that steak tastes like, well, even horse meat tastes better than that.
It's the same steak that Cypher ate.
Okay, my best film of 2018 was Sorry to Bother You, though.
Okay.
That's better. But yeah, man, I get the Mandy love.
It's the only movie starring a cannibal that I can think of.
I am 100% a fucking cannibal. And guess what? That man is now being investigated. Yeah, he's being investigated.
Yeah, just today he's got a whole bunch of new sexual assault charges I saw on the news.
And let's bring this back to Batman. Guess who was gonna play Batman at one point? Armie Hammer.
Wow.
Yeah, no, he was in the running.
No, he wasn't. No. Armie Hammer wasn't in the running. Armie Hammer was cast. That George Miller Justice League movie was happening. Armie Hammer was gonna be Batman. Like,
he's got the jaw for it.
He does.
Well, that's from all that chewing of the human meat.
The long pig. I have to say that
I've heard once you go human, you never go back.
I love Ben Affleck as Batman, and I really like Henry Cavill as Superman. It's just I feel like they need the movies to be in. Like, these aren't the movies for them. And the stuff with Batman in this film, you know, I said I was going to avoid talking about the Snyder Cut when we were talking about the Whedon Cut. When in this version, when they keep him away from being in the cape and cowl for the longest time, and then he shows up when Commissioner Gordon turns on the bat signal, I was in for it. I was just like, yeah, that's right. He looks really good as this Batman, and I really like him. But man, I don't like these movies as much as I should, and I just feel like they deserve better films than what they're actually in.
I'm going to argue with you a little bit on the Ben Affleck thing. Not a lot. I think I didn't like him as Batman. I thought he was great as Bruce Wayne. I didn't buy him as Batman, but I really did as Bruce Wayne. Whereas I'm the exact opposite on Henry Cavill. I bought him 100% as Superman, but not as Clark Kent.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, I said the exact same thing about him and Clark Kent, and I totally agree. I just think that's
because there's not two characters with Superman.
Right. Well, and it feels like those movies are filled with so much other shit. It's like they just don't even have room to breathe. Like Batman versus Superman, rewatching that the other night, I was like, wow, this isn't as bad as I remembered it being. Yes, the Martha stuff is still just such a kick right in the taint. But the idea of him and Alfred working together, I was like, wow, I just want a movie of this. Just give me a movie of Batman, please. Just take away the versus Superman stuff, take away the god awful Lex Luthor, but that's what let's focus on that.
Mike, but you got Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Joker.
Oh God, that was so bad.
Okay, at one point I know in Batman versus Superman, Joker was also a villain in it. I am convinced, even though I have no evidence besides what's on the screen, that they just took all the Joker part and the Lex Luthor part and put them together, because you cannot convince me he's not playing Lex Joker.
Oh yeah, I mean it's basically, what was that? The second Howling movie. You know, your sister's a vampire or your sister's a werewolf.
Your sister's a werewolf. Yeah, I'm the one who said I'm convinced that was a vampire script, and they did Microsoft Word Replace or whatever the 80s version of that would be, just changed it to werewolf, because you got werewolves in Transylvania. They can only be killed with a stake to the heart. They are allergic to garlic. They can't come out during the day. It's like, this is a vampire movie, you fucking asshole.
Exactly.
Stop trying to tell me this is a werewolf film.
Yeah, and it felt very much like that. Well, we're going to do a find and replace. We're going to find all of those instances of whatever we want to call the Joker in his human form, and we're just going to replace that with Lex Luthor. Okay, yeah. I mean, the father beating him up, all that kind of bad childhood boohoo kind of shit. It's just like, this sounds very Joker-esque to me. Yeah, and I didn't need Joker showing up at the end of this movie. I didn't need this epilogue. I didn't need all of this extra stuff.
I didn't need Amber Heard still getting rolled. Okay. Okay, just today, we're not going to get into it, but Richard Stanley is being canceled for of physical abuse, and we know what happened with Armie Hammer and some of these other people. How the fuck is Amber Heard still get roles when she's the goddamn abuser?
I don't get it.
Well,
And
hold
she's
on.
so
Even if she's
bad.
not the sole abuser, they were abusive together, and there's a disparity in the reaction.
Right.
I'm not going to give Depp a pass either, because I don't think he's any more able to control his worst faculties any more than she is. But the response to him is disparate to what it is for her, because she's going to be an Aquaman too. Johnny Depp is no longer going to be in the Harry Potter franchise anymore. Albeit, I'm not going to complain about who replaced him. Mads Mikkelsen is fucking amazing. Give me more Mads Mikkelsen until the end of time. But it is a disparity in the punishment, because Amber Heard should not be working any more than Johnny Depp should. Period. End of story.
Well, she's just a bad actress too.
Well, but that makes it worse.
I've only liked her in one role I've seen her in, and that was Drive Angry. I thought she was quite good in Drive Angry. She didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting because that was Nicolas Cage doing all that.
Oh, yeah.
But she was not bad in that. I've not seen her in anything else where I thought she gave a good performance.
She's in the final John Carpenter film. She essentially, everybody always makes the joke about her ending John Carpenter's film career.
Talking about The Ward?
Yeah.
That movie doesn't even count as a John Carpenter film.
I don't even remember her in Drive Angry. I mostly remember Fichtner in that movie because it was a Fichtner Cage film for me.
Fichtner almost stole that fucking movie from Cage, man.
Yeah.
Fichtner was fucking great in that.
He was great. That is one of his key roles for me. I love him in that.
But Amber Heard is not good.
No, nor are her wigs.
Oh my God. Neither is Willem Dafoe's wig. Come on now.
Oh,
Willem Dafoe looking like he came off of the elf central casting in Lord of the Rings. My Lord, man.
He looked like he was trying to cosplay as Chucky before he got put in the doll. As Brad Dourif as the serial killer. But
I think that wig was still fitted for the chick who played Tariel in The Hobbit. I'm like 90% sure. It was terrible. And like he looks so different in Aquaman. He has like a short haircut in Aquaman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Mike, about Fichtner, you name me one thing Fichtner's not good in. I'll wait.
I can't do it.
Freaking great.
So not being a DC guy, I didn't know this Desaad character, and I was in my notes he's written as in the Marquis, and I'm guessing they named him after that.
He is Darkseid's chief torturer and information getterer. So yeah, I think so.
And I never knew that it was actually pronounced Darkseid. I thought it was Darkseid. So I always thought it was like West Side kind of thing.
At least you didn't say Darkseid. There are so many people online that call him Darkseid, and it's like, okay, first of all, you're an idiot if you think that spells Darkseid. But also, just go watch Super Friends. He's called Darkseid on that. He's not called Darkseid. Stop saying that.
And before everyone gets their panties in a bunch, Darkseid existed before Thanos. So all the assholes that want to complain, that's a source material thing. That's not our fault. That's not our problem. That's who copied who first. Yeah, they copied him first in the comics, and then they're copying him second in the movie. That's fine. I like Darkseid. I like that Darkseid was in this movie. I know it's not going anywhere. I know this is being called a cinematic cul-de-sac, is what they're calling it. But
also the fact, Chris, he uses the Omega beams once on the Atlanteans in the flashback. He could have done that through the boom tube at the end and blown everybody up.
Oh yeah,
the Omega are fucking. They can do anything basically.
Yeah. He could have killed all those. Yeah, it made no sense. He knew that they were the only thing stopping him from coming to Earth. Why didn't he just go just like kill him?
I mean, it would have been one thing if they hadn't used it earlier, and it was like, okay, maybe this version of Darkseid doesn't have Omega beams. Fine. But the fact that he used it in Atlantis is like, but what, you can only use that once in a movie?
Right.
Is this like a D&D thing where a wizard can only use a spell once in a 24-hour period or something?
He didn't roll 20 on that one. He rolled a 6, and he He just had to let the portal close.
You mentioned something, Josh, that I wanted to talk about. The scene where where Wonder Woman starts telling Batman about the initial fight where they push Darkseid, whatever the fuck. Now I'm saying it because you said it wrong. Jesus. When they pushed Darkseid off of Earth the first time.
Right.
Why was Wonder Woman narrating the entire scene? She added nothing. It was like, show, don't tell, but then don't add your own commentary, because I could pick up what's going on my own.
It was at least... So, like, rewatching Whedon and then watching the Snyder, like, her going into that cave and seeing all that stuff, I was just like, okay, so she's basically telling Batman everything that she just saw in that cave, as opposed to like, hey, I'm going to give an info dump to you right now out of fucking nowhere. So I was like, oh, okay. At least it kind of makes sense. But I do agree with you. It's too much narration. Like, she could have started the story and then it could have just gone on from there. We didn't need the narration
and I
for
say
that.
all that because it's a cool scene. It looks cool. It's an interesting fight. You don't have to mess it up by having Wonder Woman narrating in the background, adding nothing. It's like the joke that Father Malone always makes about Blade Runner, where it's like, you know, and then I looked and saw the red door. Yeah, we know you're looking at the fucking red door right now. We get it. Like, you don't have to tell us you're looking at the red door.
I will say during that, though, I like the Green Lantern, the nameless Green Lantern. He looks better in the Snyder version.
Much better.
His death is better. It's much cooler with his hand being cut off and then the ring returning to Oa than in the Snyder, the Whedon version. He just like gets stabbed through the chest and then the ring flies off. But he was an idiot. The ring is a distance weapon. Why would you charge Darkseid with that? It's a distance weapon. You know, it's like that scene in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 where the kid is the wizard and he's kicking Freddy's fucking ass. But then he's got to run up to him so Freddy can get him. You stay out of arm's length of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a ranged fighter, you don't run up to him.
But it doesn't look cool if you don't do that.
I know. I'm just saying it bothered me because the Lantern was doing fine, flying around, smacking parademons around.
Did the ring almost go to Darkseid? It looks like he could have like just plucked that out of the air. Like, is he able to be a Green Lantern?
No, the way the Green Lantern rings work is when the Green Lantern dies, it will seek out somebody, kind of like Thor with Mjolnir,
right.
Somebody who's worthy. And
it looked like it was going to him because he was worthy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I thought it was just sort of like whirring around and then like, okay, I'll go back to Oa until...
I thought the same thing you did, Mike.
Somebody.
But
okay.
I also didn't know if Snyder was just like, this looks cool, let's do it.
Yeah, which is pretty much his whole raison d'etre, right?
I mean, again, like, it's kind of like the shapeshifter question. Like, Zack Snyder is the shapeshifter question in film form. Are you doing this on purpose because you're trying to evoke something or do some sort of something you talked about recently, Mike, some film semiotics where this has a reason to be here? Or is it you're just doing this because it looks cool? And then assholes like us are going to ascribe meaning to it when it had no meaning after the fact. And then bigger assholes will ascribe lofty meanings to it. And then you'll go, oh yeah, that's what I meant. And it's like, yeah, I guess. Or someone just did the legwork for you and you happened upon it and said, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we can just pop right over to YouTube and watch the Screen Rant reaction to...
Exactly.
to
and it's like, oh yeah, I know, like I meant to do the force majeure. It's very deep. And like, yeah, he did the force majeure thing on purpose, but like there's a lot of other stuff in Justice League and in Snyder's body of work where I'm like, is this intentional or are you just kind of a moron who fell into things? Or is a little bit of both? It's probably a combination of the both.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually dreading all of the Screen Rants and all of these nerd culture sites. I'm sure Den of Geek and all of these other places that I avoid like the fucking plague. They're all going to start showing up on my Facebook timeline by people I'm Facebook friends with who are so stupid. What Screen Rant said. Yeah, well, if you ever start a sentence with "and Screen Rant said," you've already lost your argument. That's like a relative of mine who always, well, I saw an Alex Jones show. Okay, shut up. You've already lost the argument when Alex Jones is your source. Okay.
Well, and again, Screen Rant is one of those places where when I think about it, I think it's like, well, 9 things you didn't know about, and it's like, maybe one of them, maybe, but even that one might be kind of a stretch.
The thing I always love about those is it all comes from the commentary track. It's like, okay, yeah, I listened to that same commentary. All of your things you didn't know are in the same order. It's like, hey, I knew this stuff. Even if I didn't know it before, I have the same Blu-ray you do, you know?
Yeah, what I really like are the ones where you get like the more independent producers doing things like that, and then you'll see them go, "Hey, Screen Rant just ripped off my video of 10 things you didn't know about the Invisible Man, and I can prove that I did that because I made this mistake and they made the exact same mistake or whatever." It's like, okay, great.
Those channels never get taken down for that shit.
No.
It's like there's a YouTuber named Minty Comic Arts. He steals from everybody. He's stolen from Cecil on Good Bad Flicks, who I know you've had on the show. You know, he's one of my co-hosts. He's stolen from a lot of people that are like, well, I did this big in-depth 30-minute video on, some movie. A week later, Minty does the same thing using the same footage and everything's in the same order. And he's got like double the subs. And it's like, fuck you.
Chris, when you have this up on your channel tomorrow, I'm hoping that you'll do like a really deceptive thumbnail for it, where it'll be like a picture from Justice League outlined in yellow with like a circle here and a big arrow pointing to something that never actually comes up.
No, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have Josh, it's going to be a screenshot of Josh flipping off the camera, and it's just going to have him going, the text is saying, "Why is this man so angry at Justice League? Click here and find out."
13,000 things.
I know, it will totally work. It will totally work.
Work because I'm a very angry guy when it comes to movies, and I'm just really angry about how bad most pop culture is.
Well,
that's my shtick, if you will.
Well, but look, ultimately at the end of the day, when you look at something like this, the reason that I watched Justice League is, Snyder Cut is going to be different from the people who wanted to see it and were sitting on the internet and asking for it and championing it and going out of their way to buy banners flying through the air at Comic-Con and stinking up, like Mike said, Twitter feeds for 4 years about how they want the Snyder Cut to come out. You know what the real question is now? This is the question, and this is the question that Heath Ledger poses in The Dark Knight. Now that the dog has caught the car, what does the dog do? Where do these assholes put their time and effort now that the Snyder Cut's come out? Are they just going to talk about the Snyder Cut until they're blue in the face?
Well, no, they're going to become red letter media, and they're going to wait for them to make a way too long video that's not even remotely funny about the Snyder Cut.
Whoa.
I like red
letter.
Right,
I like red letter media too. God damn. That was a that I looked at Mike looked at me, we looked through each other's souls and realized that once that I get it though. I get it. You're not the first person I've heard, you're not the last person I've heard, and you probably have some very on point criticism, but you're also 100% right that now the cottage industry is people breaking down the movies. Right. Because before it was getting the movie made or released, and now the cottage industry is breaking the movie down, extolling the wisdom and wonder of Zack Snyder, and opining Justice League 2 coming out, because at this point, Justice League 2 is going to come out. It's too late, it's happening, too bad, we're fucked.
Right. Or do they turn their attention now to the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, and they're just like, this is the next hill to climb?
No. I'm going to
probably that.
I'm not changing the subject. I'm going to single out red letter media, but they're not the only people that do this. Okay. A lot of the people who are going to be overanalyzing the Snyder Cut are people who I think don't like film. Like whenever I watch a Red Letter Media review or something, these people don't enjoy film. They don't get enjoyment out of watching film. Now, people can say that about me because I hate so much, but that's because I love film. I want it to be better. And I think when you have all these people that are going to be analyzing the Snyder Cut, these are people who don't actually like film. They just want to be right about their opinions on this film. That's where I think Red Letter Media is going to come in, because those people are utterly joyless. When you see them talk about a movie, I actually think they hate movies when I see them. And I think not only are they going to have to do a Snyder Cut, but you're going to see Screen Rant and you're going to see Watch Mojo and all this nonsense. These are people who don't like film. And I think that's going to be more of what you see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm an asshole. Well, I'm definitely an asshole, but maybe I'm just being an asshole in this case because I can see Mike totally zoning out.
No, I don't. I don't think you're wrong in respects to the people who are going to make these videos on YouTube, because you're already seeing, and I've already read a bunch of stuff today.
Oh yeah,
I
they
mean,
are so out there in force. It cracks me up when it's just like, when did you even have time to make this?
How did you watch the movie and make this?
I saw some reviews coming out less than 4 hours after the Snyder Cut dropped. So I'm like,
right,
you had to have watched this at double speed or something. It's sort of the same way. I was at a used DVD store the other day, and they had like 3 used copies of a movie that just came out the day before. And you go, how? Why? Yeah. Did they buy it, watch it, and then immediately sell it?
There were screeners that were sent out for the Snyder Cut, I think either Saturday or Sunday.
A lot of the YouTube hacks got them, yeah.
Yeah, and then so I got sent a some sort of HBO show, like, hey, watch all of this HBO show, and I'm just like, okay, where did this come from? And then I followed it up, and I wrote to the people that sent me this email, and I was just like, yeah, I want to request a copy of the Snyder Cut. And they wrote back, and they're just like, okay, who are you? What is this? I'm like, here I am. You know,
the list, people.
I'm a fucking, big star here. You don't know who I am? Yeah, whatever. And then they actually wrote back, and they said, okay, yeah, we're having troubles, an issue generating them. And I was like, okay, by that you mean watermarking them. So yeah. I ended up getting this last night, I think it was. So, but then like literally it was like 20 minutes after I got the email, which had this many instructions on how to use this authorization thing that they had. Like,
oh, I had that once.
Oh my God.
That it was just, okay, you have to go through this and then authorize your email, and then you can only watch it on this, and you can't pause it.
Right.
And if we detect any kind of screen grabbing, it'll immediately, and it's like, okay, this is a fucking, the one I was doing was for that one that Joe Bob Briggs is in that was on Shudder. What was it called? That really bad comedy.
Is it called I Hate Gays or I Hate Trans People, or which Joe Bob Briggs was it?
Joe Bob is a god, you infidel. But
sure. See, there we go. See, look at that. Red Letter Media, Joe Bob Briggs. See?
Different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes for different folks.
No, but no, Mike, I know what you mean. Some of these things are so ridiculous, the authentication, that it's literally not worth it to just wait until it actually comes out,
Can you imagine watching the Snyder Cut, not being able to pause it?
Yeah. Oh my God.
What did I miss when I peed?
I paused it like 4 or 5 times. I can't imagine having to sit in one place and only watch it one way. Can't imagine sitting at my computer and watching it for 4 hours, because undoubtedly you wouldn't be able to even watch it anywhere else anyways.
I stopped it at one point, just literally turned the video off, went and made something to eat, and came back.
Yeah. Well, so regardless, I got this thing, did all this, and then 20 minutes later I saw that there was a bootleg out there already. So I'm just like, okay, so I'll download that, and the bootleg had the introduction that you were talking about with Snyder. So I'm just like, okay, well, this actually has a little bit more to it than the one that you were sending out. And then I think I ended up watching the the one through the screener company, and yeah, I was jumping through hoops. I had to have a phone and do all this kind of stuff, and then I noticed, yeah, through the whole fucking thing, it said like Mike White. Here's your IP address, all this stuff, all across the screen. I'm just like, okay, great. Maybe you could put that over on the side since you're only using a fucking 4:3 ratio.
But no, then you could edit that out and you could
Yeah.
upload it to YouTube. Oh, I remembered it was Scare Package was the Shudder movie that I had to jump through hoops for, and I just said fuck it, and I did just what you did. I just went to the bootleg sites and I found it there.
Yep.
It's like it's just way easier.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. It's not like HBO Max did itself any favors by accidentally leaking the Snyder Cut a week before it came out, by putting it
Hour.
by accidentally making it what people saw when they streamed Tom and Jerry.
Right. Yeah, to Josh's point, it was just the first hour, I think.
Yeah.
I
think
you mean half of a normal movie's length?
1/4 of this one's length.
Yeah. Most people would be pretty pissed if it was their movie because that's half the movie. This time it's like, you still got 3 hours, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You haven't even met the Flash yet.
I actually saw something online, and I don't know if this is just, conspiracy nonsense, but there's some people that said that screw up might have been on purpose to generate all of to generate all the headlines that.
Oh God.
Because they're like, that seems like a huge screw up to make, and nobody gives a shit about Tom and Jerry anyway. So there are theories that HBO did this on. I mean, it's not unheard of. Remember, I don't know, this was maybe 5-6 years ago when the final season of Dexter was coming out. The first 4 episodes leaked in perfect quality a week early, and it turned out that Showtime actually are the ones who uploaded those as a way to generate publicity. So it's not unheard of that HBO did this on purpose with the Tom and Jerry thing.
As we near the end of this podcast, and I know we're nearing the end because I know Mike's getting us there.
Start out.
Do we think this is going to become how we watch these big movies moving forward? I know HBO is going to continue to release things on their streaming platform. I know that they're going to do Matrix and Dune and watch it the same day it's in theaters. But does this take away from it being a movie watching event by having to watch it at home on your own TV? Or is this still a big deal? Because I saw more people talking about this movie today on Facebook and Twitter than I have seen people talking about anything during the pandemic. Like any other movies or anything else other than like Tiger King. People were like Justice League Day and Justice League, and even people like myself who were watching it because I had to, not because I wanted to. Like Father Malone was watching it. People like Jess Byard of the Scary Stories We Tell podcast. Her and I were FaceTiming early on when I was watching it, and she was watching it just because it came out today and there was a lot of talk about it. Like, right. Is this kind of the new normal? Because I kind of think it might be.
I think it depends on the project. Like for me, if it's something like a Fast and the Furious movie, nah, I can watch that on my TV. I don't need to see that in the theater. Kong versus Godzilla, I would much rather see that in the theater. Dune, I would much rather see that in the theater. So I think it depends. If you're watching a comedy, if you're watching a romance or just like a drama, no, I think that's just fine to watch on your TV. If you're watching an action movie or a sci-fi, like Hulu just released Boss Level, that was fun on the TV. I think that could have been pretty fun in the theater though too. It's full of explosions and fights and all this.
Well, hey, I figure Zack Snyder's Justice League was made for my old tube television because it's 4:3, which is exactly the ratio that TV used to be.
Your CRT TV.
Yes.
You gotta watch it on
I mean, look, Chris Nolan may not want his movies to be watched on a Game Boy Advance, but this movie's already in 4:3, so it's already set up for it. Or not even a Game Boy Advance, a Game Boy Color. There you go. 4:3 all day, baby. Put that 4-hour movie on a fucking Game Boy cart and let's fire that bad boy up.
You're going to love your 32 lines of resolution, baby.
I might watch this again once I can get subtitles for it, because some of Desaad and Steppenwolf's lines were pitched so low that I'm just like, I don't think Barry White could make out what they're trying to say because it was just like.
Oh,
when I was.
the amount of post-production processing on their voices was insane. On top of them was Batman was also real bad. Ben Affleck is Batman, his Batman voice, like Chris Bale doing the "Where is she?" Like everybody laughs at that, it's funny, but at the same time, that is Chris Bale's voice. In this movie, it's Ben Affleck doing his voice and then them throwing it through a couple filters on Audacity or Pro Tools and going, "Yeah, this is good enough."
Yeah, I always fuck up this guy's name, Karn Hines, who does Steppenwolf's voice. It was like watching it last night and then watching it today. I was like, wow, you took that like almost a full octave lower.
Yeah,
but he also didn't say "mother" constantly.
Oh yeah, I noticed they cut that out.
A lot of that, because he kind of "mother, lovely mother, I'm coming for you, mother," or whatever it was.
Yeah, they cut out a lot of his generic villain lines. Because I noticed, I'm watching like the Honest trailer or pitch meeting for Justice League, just how awful his limited dialogue was. I noticed that they really chopped that up quite a bit and gave him some new lines. So
and what's unfortunate is that Ciarán Hinds is a great actor. Like, I love him in everything I've seen him in, and you could have cast anybody as that villain. And like that is something that is the same from Snyder Cut to Whedon Cut. He's a little bit more interesting in the Snyder Cut. He's given a backstory, which I don't think does much because he's still an uninteresting villain design. He's kind of a gray mess. He's kind of just a blob in a suit. So he's not an interesting character. They tried to give him an interesting backstory, but I think I just don't find the villains in this movie aren't compelling. And
No.
even having Darkseid is cool, but like he literally doesn't do anything.
Well,
but come on, I mean, you're telling me during that final fight with Steppenwolf, you didn't feel a quick time event was about to happen, and you had an X?
That's fair.
I was really looking for like the fatality move. I just kept hitting, and I was just like, Brand, smash the keys. There's got to be fatality in here.
There was. She cut his like ear thing off.
Yeah. Well, and then she
but
fucking cut his head off. Yeah.
Well, but she did the ear thing first.
Right. Which I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's part of your head now. I thought it was a helmet before. I have to say, the anti-life equation, it sounds really fucking stupid just to say those three words together, but
Dude,
like
it's so cool in the comic book.
I know what Thanos is about. I know what Thanos wants to do by cutting the population in half, and he's got what he feels are really good reasons for that. I don't understand Darkseid's motivation. I don't understand the anti-life equation, because to me anti-life is death. So I just and I know they explain it a little bit as far as like roasting the world and turning everybody into parademons, but I just don't get his motivation. I don't get where he's coming from.
Jack Kirby was a Jewish comic book creator, and Darkseid is a fascist character in the mold of fascist leaders that Jack Kirby was seeing around the time he created the character. And so the anti-life equation isn't death as much as you not having the ability to make decisions for yourself. You're controlled by him. So the lack of life is the lack of your own ability to make your own decisions. It's your lack of free will is anti-life, because without the ability of free will, you have no life. So he just wants to control everybody. And by the way, that Thanos storyline in the movie is vastly different from the one that they go with in the comic books, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No.
But it works. I think actually it works perfect.
Death.
Yeah, it works perfectly in the movies because they knew they had to simplify it for the movies. I think it's a little weird that they decided to go straight up anti-life equation in this movie, because boy, that is not beginner level DC stuff. That is weird stuff.
Also, whenever they said anti-life equation, I started saying they're birthing the Coalmater, and you guys have no idea what I'm referencing, do you?
Nope.
1990, Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe. Jesse Ventura is trying to stop Sven Ole Thorson from getting the anti-life equation, which they call the Coalmater. Come on, it's a deep cut, Mike. Deep cut.
I thought you liked Abraxas, Mike.
I like the We Hate Movies episode on Abraxas quite a bit, but that's as close as I've ever come to it.
I used to have a bobblehead of Jesse Ventura as governor on my desk somewhere. I don't anymore. It's unfortunate. I think the lizard people probably took it.
I think in the movie they say
it was probably Secundus.
Yeah.
I think they say the coal mater like 40 times in this, which is the anti-life. So that's all I could think of was, is that a fucking Abraxas reference? And I know it's from the comics, but I immediately went to Abraxas Guardian of the Universe because that's how my brain works.
But to the point I was making earlier, Mike, like it's wild to me that it took Marvel damn near 25 movies to get to the point where they felt comfortable introducing the weirder aspects of their lore into the mainstream outlet that so many people are enjoying their media through. It took Marvel 20 movies, and DC's like 4 movies in, anti-life, mother boxes, fuck it. And it's like, whoa, guys, this is a lot. And I guess the assumption is if you're watching the Snyder Cut, you're a deep cut fan and you know all the things.
Well, I thought it was very smart that the whole idea of like the Tesseract and having the Tesseract in there pretty early, all the way back to Captain America, the First Avenger. And we don't necessarily know that the Tesseract is an Infinity Stone.
Right.
And just the idea of like, oh, well, that red goo in the second Thor movie, which I try to forget. Oh, that was an Infinity Stone as well. It was like, okay, so they were, it was like you're saying, they're giving us baby steps and they're really kind of taking us through it. And then it's just like, oh, remember that thing and that thing and that thing. And I know some people complained, which I found absolutely bizarre when they were trying to watch Infinity War and Endgame of, well, I have to watch all these movies before this, I can see this. And it's like, not really. Like, I can give you a primer and just say, like, here's 5 movies that you should watch. But, some people just have these knee-jerk reactions where it's like, oh, fuck that. I'm not watching 25 movies before I get to this one.
Have you ever contemplated you might actually want to watch those 25 movies after you started watching them? Like, it's not a chore to watch the Marvel movies?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's not like I'm sitting there dreading it, going like I was last night going, fuck, I got to watch Justice League again.
But Mike, this will be the last thing before we all actually wrap up. That's the thing some people were saying they loved about the DC movies versus the Marvel movies. It took Marvel 25 movies to get it. Only took us 4. It moves. I mean, I've heard this from the Snyder cultists. It moves so fast. You don't have to watch all of these other movies, and it's more.
The training wheels are off, bro.
Yeah, to them, that's a selling point, Mike. That's part of the problem we're having here.
I think it's just tailored way too specifically towards a niche group of people, and you really run the risk of alienating everybody else.
Yep.
And that's I think the biggest thing we should end this on is a question we 3 of us should answer. Do we think this is the end of this? With the Snyder Cut, do we, a year from now, are we going to be talking about how the Snyder Cut came and went? It was a weird little thing that happened. We all had a good time talking about it, and that's it. Or do you guys, and we'll start with Josh and then Mike, and then we'll come to me. Do you genuinely think this is it? Or do you think this will be wildly successful enough to have Warner Brothers, AT&T, the fuckers over there, making the decisions up in the office room with the big windows where the people can throw themselves out of once they make a bad decision, Simpsons style? Are they going to look at this, if it's successful, and go, here's more money, Zack Snyder, do with it as you will?
I think Hollywood always takes the wrong lesson from a success. And so while the rational part of me says this is it was meant to be just, like you said, a cul-de-sac.
And that's not me saying that. That's them.
Well, okay, I heard you.
Sure, yeah, but no, like my point is like that is the signaling that DC, Warner Brothers, everybody but Snyder was saying this is a creative cul-de-sac where it could have gone, blah 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 blah, all that kind of bullshit of like non-committal bullshit.
Well, I'm saying, okay, with that, I think if this is as successful as I think it's going to be, Warner Brothers probably doesn't want to. AT&T has already overruled them once. I think AT&T just sees dollar signs. So I do think a year from now, Justice League 2 might be in pre-production for all we know.
Yeah, I don't see them rebooting the whole DCEU. I mean, there are other movies. You talked about
Flash,
Aquaman 2, yeah, Flash,
Shazam,
Shazam 2,
Black Adam. That's
Black
what it was.
Adam,
Black Adam. So they're not going to reboot
Green
the
Lantern
DCEU.
TV show, Suicide Squad TV show.
So they're not going to leave all that money on the table of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They're going to say, yeah, like, I don't have Ben Affleck, I guess is done. He keeps vacillating whether he's going to come back or not. Henry Cavill, I don't know, but regardless, they're going to still keep making stuff. There is already a new Superman show out there. They're going to keep making stuff, and I would not be surprised if they came back and said, yeah, let's go ahead and do Justice League 2 and do all this stuff. Maybe they'll take a lesson from Marvel and they'll start doing these other movies and have all this other stuff to build upon when they come back to Justice League 2. Or maybe they'll just say, oh, fuck it. We did it before. Let's do it again. Let's just make Justice League 2 and continue on with this dark side stuff. We've already got all this shit going with the dream sequence with Batman. We've got Martian Manhunter. We'll introduce Green Lanterns to this new thing, and off we go. So,
and Robert Pattinson as Batman.
Yeah, sure, why not?
And
because, I mean, he's now. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but here's the thing. DC's already given itself a trapdoor by saying that's Elseworld stuff. There's many multiverses, yada, yada, yada. Even Joker said it in DC. The way I answer this question is to apply a different fan base and a different fandom to, and their expectations to this one. I am a fan of wrestling. I love professional wrestling. Roast me for it. I don't give a shit. In wrestling, there's a term that gets thrown around a lot. Never say never. Zack Snyder said this was never going to happen. Warner Brothers said this was never going to happen. Mike, you've said it. Josh, you've said it. I've said it. We've all said it. Industry insiders said this movie didn't exist, yet we're looking at it. Sure, it didn't exist the way that they claimed it was going to in 2017, but a movie still came out. It's still called the Snyder Cut. It still has the same actors in it. It has more actors in it. It has more stuff in it. Like you said, Josh, like you said, Mike, they'd be stupid to leave the money on the table. And I really believe never say never. I have seen things happen recently that make me wonder why I thought they weren't I never thought we'd see another season of something. You already mentioned, Josh. I never thought we'd see another season of Dexter. I thought that shit was dead and buried like the garbage it was. And yet, Dexter is coming back. And it's coming back with the folks who wanted it to come back, the people who were motivated to make it come back, the people who wanted the show to be successful in those first 5 seasons. 4 seasons before Clyde Phillips left. He's back. I bet they bring more people back. They have Michael C. Hall back. And yet, I didn't believe that was going to happen. I didn't believe for the longest time that Star Wars films were going to happen. And yet they happened. You know what? I honestly, I know that Snyder has his problems. I know that Zack Snyder is not the kind of person that understands nuance or subtlety, and he doesn't seem to have a very good focus or understanding of who he is in the industry he works in. I think he thinks way too highly of himself versus what the industry thinks of him outside of the guy who makes the money. So I think we would be stupid to think, and we're obviously not stupid because we don't think this way, that this is the end. I think this is the beginning.
Don't pigeonhole me. I can be stupid.
Well, look, you're not stupid because you realize the financial ramifications of not doing another one of these movies. Everybody's locked up, at least the people that are still locked up, which is more of us than not. And this is the newest thing that we can watch. And so many of us watched it because it was the only thing to watch, or it was just something to do on a Thursday night. Or whatever. People were watching The fucking Irishman. I mean, holy shit. It's like people don't watch 4-hour movies. And that movie had what? Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. It didn't have fucking Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman in it. This is so much more approachable to the general audience, like watching public, that I genuinely think this is the best thing that's ever going to have happened to the DCEU. I honest to God believe that. I think this is going to be the moment where we all look at the DCEU and go, oops, they're about to pummel the shit out of us with all these movies that people can't stop watching. And they're not going to be very good, but they're going to keep making them. Because I think this is going to, like you said, Josh, it's going to embolden them. Because of course it will.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's fucking insane.
Well, we're talking about filmmaking, so insane kind of comes with the
Yeah.
kind of base of it, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. There is part of me that still feels like this is a fever dream that we're actually talking about the Snyder Cut because we joked about it for so long.
Yeah, this was the longer version of Greed and the Magnificent Ambersons, all of these mythical things, or things that we know that we can't see.
Yeah.
I just, the last thing I want to say is I think it's kind of sad that this movie is going to be to some people what The Other Side of the Wind was to people like Mike and I.
Yeah.
Because I'm just going to say the arrogant thing. Other Side of the Wind is a massively better film than anything Zack Snyder could ever touch. Yet these things are going to be equated. I think the only thing that could ever surprise me more is if Day the Clown Cried ever just escapes to the internet.
Oh,
I heard that if you watch Tom and Jerry right now, you can see the first hour of The Day the Clown Cried.
You know what would be the thing I would be willing to say would be more surprising than this happening would be if Disney ever officially released, and Mike, you both know what I'm going to say. It would be if Disney ever officially released Song of the fucking South. That would be this level of insanity. I don't know.
No, that's not what I was going to say. I thought it was the original cuts of Star Wars.
Oh, well.
I was going to say, if Charles Band ever fucking finishes The Primevals, I've been only looking forward to that movie for 40 fucking years.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Star Wars too, but if Song of the South ever got a Disney endorsed release with an audio commentary with learned folks talking about the film, that's the best way to release that movie, for the record. Disney, do a good job and just fucking own up to it. But that's one of those things where I would have put Snyder Cut in that hallowed group of names of shit where I'm just like, I don't genuinely believe that this could ever be a thing. And we said it for years, Mike. You could go back and listen to the Culture Cast. I'm sure you could listen to the Projection Booth. I'm sure you could listen to your podcast as well, Josh. We all said the Snyder Cut is never gonna happen because it's not a thing. And yet we're sitting here right now wrong. And I feel like I have to eat my words because I know you guys, Josh didn't at least, didn't enjoy it. I have to eat my words a little bit because not only did I kind of enjoy it, I'm kind of glad it came out. Because it proved me wrong. And frankly, it shows that the industry, as shitty as it is that they cow-tied to the fans, I still can't believe we watched this movie. I still can't believe we spent almost 4 hours talking about this movie. It's wild. It's a genuine insanity. It is 2020. It's been this last year in a nutshell. The fact that the Snyder Cut came out in 2021, was announced in 2020, at the beginning of a global pandemic is just, boy, of course. Of course.
I'm just glad it came out so the Snyder cultists can shut the fuck up. It was sort of, I don't mean to be picking on Henry Cavill, but remember when the last Mission Impossible movie was going to be coming out? Every fucking movie I went to go see had that trailer before it. I think I saw that trailer with him reloading his arms at least 15 times in the theater, and I just said, I just want this fucking movie to come out so the trailers stop.
I agree. I think you're correct. It's over. This is over and done. The Snyder Cut is out. Now the post-mortem of what it does after the fact is the thing. But look, kudos to those people on the internet because, man, you yell into a void long enough, and I guess the void will eventually shout back at you.
All the people on the internet you've had your orgasm, you've all come. Now you're either going to have to do the walk of shame with your panties around your ankles home, or you're going to have to lay in your own mess.
That was a good way to bring it back to that whole having no respect for you in the morning thing.
Well, I didn't do it on purpose. But I used to write for Hustler, for God's sake. My mind goes there, okay?
Chris,
you want to bring us home?
Yeah. Where does
he doesn't know how to follow that.
Where do we go from here? Yeah, so where can people find you, Mike?
You can always find me over at the Projection Booth, which is available at Projection Booth Podcast, and where this episode will be released as an audio version here, and as well as your guys' feeds as well, I think.
It'll be on mine as well.
Well, I had to stop recording when my computer started kicking me in the balls, so I don't have a backup of this one.
Well, I will be providing one to you. Yes.
There are 2 people on this call that probably have 5 backups between the 2 of them. So
okay, if you guys provide me with one, you can find it at 1201beyond.com, although that site's way out of date. But my YouTube channel, just look up Josh Hadley, or my shows on Anchor. Retrodrome is the only one we're doing right now. We just did an episode on the Body Chemistry franchise, which I offered to Mike, and he said, not on your life.
That's what I usually say when you offer me stuff, though.
Well, the next one we got coming up is Demons. I don't know if that's better.
I haven't seen any of those either. Don't know.
Demons is fun.
There's actually 2, and then there's 9 unofficial ones.
Oh, see. Yeah, no. You kill me with these things.
Wait, this is coming from Mike White, the read your books to be on my podcast, man.
Yes,
come on now.
Hey, come on, Mike. Admit it. You liked the Killer Tomatoes one.
On top of the work that I'm already doing to do,
that's fair.
13 movies with Josh? I can't do it. I gotta make a call somewhere.
That's true.
And yes, I did like the Killer Tomatoes series.
And see, but see, I'm doing all that. Plus, I'm writing an article for a couple of magazines, and I'm researching an article for Horror Hound that is just like, plus I'm going to school full time.
See, people think I'm nuts, but I try to take after Josh.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at Christmas Claus. You can find me on the Culture Cast. That's my main podcast. You'll be able to find this podcast there. I don't know when, but sometime in the near future. I'm not going to set a date on it because I don't want to make somebody sweat. So let's not do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But if you were listening to us here live, first off, I speak for the 3 of us in saying thank you for joining us. I don't know if this will become a regular thing. It might be, it might not be. You'll know when we know, and by when we know, we'll let you know. So then you'll know. But we don't know if we're going to do this again. So thank you for joining us, for sticking with us for, god damn, almost 4 hours. I was trying to get us to be the runtime of the movie just to prove a point that we can be just as entertaining as the movie could. And I think we were.
But see, now I've proved myself to be a hypocrite, because I bitch about shows that just go on and live streams that go on for 4 hours. So I'm a hypocrite.
But hey, nothing wrong with that.
I was on Mike White's Conan episode. That was what, 7.5 hours, Mike?
And that was the episode. That was the episode that came out around the same time that I first ever talked to Mike. Was the Conan, because I remember looking at it and going, and this is the perfect way to end this podcast. I looked at it and said, who in God's name would listen to a 4.5 or a 7 hour podcast about Conan? Just like who would listen to a 4 hour podcast about Justice League? Well, you did, folks. And there you go.
And the